ladies and gentlemen. I've missed you. I've missed each and every single one of you, and I've missed this event, Jay Howe. As preseason qualifiers is one heck of a time, and we're doing it for the third one now, as we're going to be looking for that third team to qualify into the EMEA Pro League.
Yeah, it's been so cool so far. The drastic difference, we had week 1, then we had a week off for the new patch and everything like that. And when we came back from that week off, there was like a whole new meta. And so a lot of things seem to have changed between week 1 and week 2. And this is the first time I think we're going to see some continuity now that we go straight from week 2 to week 3 with this new meta.
I'm hoping so, and the really nice thing is, if we take a look at the weeks past, we've already had a sample size of 2. We've seen what we called a really big turnover in the teams. This time we've got a lot of returning faces. We're starting to see those consistent teams start to crop up again and again. But if you're a first-time viewer, as you very well may be, it's worth going over what exactly brings us to the preseason qualifier. What does this mean? And you can see it right there on your screen in the bottom left-hand corner. That's us, the little box that says preseason qualifiers. What is that, Jay Howe?
Well, that's where we're at now. So the teams, they'll be playing on the weekend. When you see them playing throughout the weekend, you see them on their own streams. They qualify, they go through a bunch of rounds, then they go through, and the finals are today. Points accumulate mostly here in the finals, and when the finals come together, it's a cumulative point total from week 1 to week 4. The top teams in each week will qualify for ALGS Pro League. There's 16 more slots, so you want to accumulate as many points as possible over those 4 weeks, so every game matters.
And so that you can participate in all of these lovely events that you see before you. Just to reiterate, of course, first place team today ends up getting their spot in Pro League. That's the big prize, and that is what we focus on. In the past 2 weeks, we've already had 69 IQ and Kick Esports qualify, and both of those were off the back of some very, very convincing performances. We all remember the triple win from 69 IQ, but Kick was kind of pub stomping in their own lobbies as well, and now we get to see who else surfaces alongside them. I've got my own predictions, but we've seen some predictions already from some streamers around EMEA that have been watching everything. I know that I was tuning into Noise's stream earlier from IG, or rather Endeavor is what he's been playing on recently, and as beautiful as the screen cap as this is, I think it's worth talking about these 10 teams he's highlighted.
Yeah, Eternal, we know the name from week number 1. They had a fantastic performance, but it's teams like Dead Inside and Top Dogs that have been consistent performers. And then you look at him with Clean at 4th. Clean has been the team with the fastest ascent so far. They had a really good week last week, and we saw G Dolphin. He was tweeting out some stuff about how the progression that they made between weeks 1 and 2 were a big step for them, and I couldn't agree more. What we saw from Clean last week gives you hope. It makes you feel like they're definitely going to get into ALGS, but now they have a shot of winning today. I think they're the front runners for me.
I would definitely agree. I mean, they're, like you say, the only team that sort of took the transition into the new meta in stride, moving themselves up in the standings significantly. The only other team that went positive in points, that attended both number 1 and number 2 of the qualifiers, was Top Dogs, and they increased by 1 point, which isn't exactly the momentum that I'm looking for, although hey, maybe it's just enough. Red Dragons, though, being in the top 10 did surprise me, as I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring to the table, but for them, in between week 1 and 2, there was a really big fall-off, and I want to see if they can get back on the horse in the meta.
Yeah, it's all about consistency when it comes to Apex Legends. Is you can have one good week, but you'd rarely want to have one bad week. You can have an off week, which means that you're kind of middle of the road, but when you do fall further down, it really makes you question what type of things went wrong there and how they can rebound. You know, one of the teams that was noticeably absent from that list, and also absent from week number 1 of our qualifiers, is Major Pushers. And if you were to come into the qualifiers here, Dia, you and I, we know what they're capable of. And if you followed competitive, you know what they're capable of. This is a team that hasn't shown their true potential yet and hasn't had their consistently spring up. But at any given moment, they can dominate a lobby.
I'm actually really hoping that we get to see at least one game of that today, because, like you say, we've seen it so many times before. And the thing is that in the early game, Major Pushers is actually doing just fine. You can tell that their experience is very clearly netting them individual wins, but it's in the sort of later game stages around that 4th or 5th ring that it seems like they're a little bit less comfortable than they once were. And That's where we do have to be worried a little bit. They've also got teams that can upset them, though, as a lot of people coming into today might not know the name Phoenix Legacy, but there's a very good chance that you will after all these games are done.
Yeah, we were talking about this beforehand. I think, you know, I know you live, eat, and breathe Apex. You love Apex esports. I'm over here. The production's getting in on it. The amount of investment here on the side here over at Game Time, it's phenomenal because we just talk about Apex and we're debating like how good is Phoenix Legacy going to be. I kind of wish we had like a pre-show at some point because there's so much to talk about with these teams. But it is one of the names that does spring up when you see things coming into today and through this weekend overall, because their performance this weekend was actually really good.
Yeah, the semifinals is a really big step up for them, and I mean, I've got a few other things, you know, like Top Dogs didn't have the best semifinals, and we'll have to talk about that at some point. But Phoenix Legacy is somebody that I am really excited to see because of their performance in the semis. That might lead them to have a little bit more confidence today, because that I think is a big part of where this team sort of falters, is when they make a play, they know it's the right one. They're all experienced players, and yet for some reason there's this 50-50 in their head. The team will split up, and that's where they can fall apart. If we tune into them during a fight, that's what I want you guys to be looking for. That's what I want you to be looking for, Jay Howe, is to see whether they can keep it together, stay as a unit, because that is the one thing that they still need to work on.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down, and speaking of things that you and I had discussed, comms are a very big deal. And I think this is one of the reasons where, you know, you see a team like Clean that has a very fast descent with a player like G Dolphin, who was a coach for TSM. And you start to learn things from better players. You start to learn things from being around top-notch people. But it also comes down to communication. You have to be able to understand what each player is saying, what information that they're giving, and remaining on the same page. And that's not always easy. Like, I've been around esports quite a bit, and I can tell you comms are a very big deal. One thing in esports communication is communicating the most amount of information in the least words possible. And when you can't get on the same page, sometimes it does come down to comms, which is why a coach can really come in and help things like that, where you have somebody like G Dolphin, he knows exactly what to communicate and get his team on the same page. And then other teams, they might be individually talented, but they still have some figuring out to do. But I think that's the one thing that there's always promise of. A team that is really, really skilled individually that doesn't quite have the comms. They've got the tools. They just need to sharpen them a little bit in the comms department. That's another tool that is very underrated in esports. So I think it does come down to comms a lot of times with those teams that are very good individually, but getting them on the same page as a team is a whole different story.
And you brought up the point about the coaches here, and our production staff was talking just before this as well about how AAS are, I think, the only team that has actually registered with a coach coming into today. So maybe they've gotten the chance to break down some of the performances in the quarters and semis in order to be able to improve to here. And it's worth saying, Jay Howe, that this week specifically, there's a lot of volume of games to cover because Saturday was a very, very long day for a lot of these guys.
So it was very competitive, I think, in terms of how many teams, and I think we saw that across both NA and EMEA. There was a lot, we'll say that much. So they did have a lot of practice. Sometimes for these better teams or the teams that we know are going to be at the top, they kind of coast through things a little bit. Once Sunday hits, it's that mental fortitude. How well do you stand up from the volume of games? Because you are playing a substantial amount of games, but this is the road to get here. And I think that's what's fantastic about this entire experience is you might be good. You might be good as a team, but can you withhold that over a sustained period of time? And that by the time Monday hits, you're going to find out.
Yeah, and this is the thing that really will determine, of course, who moves on, but is necessary for that as well, because you talk about that consistency, and this isn't just to win a tournament. It's not to walk away with a massive prize pool. It's to participate in more Apex. So that mental fortitude really does need to be there, especially when it comes to Pro League, when it comes to all of the tension that comes with professional stakes in a league as well, and having to face up against the same teams again and again, get your reads on them, contest them if you need to. There's so many different moving parts that come with consistently playing Apex that I'm excited to see which of these teams can sort of give us a teaser of that here so that they can take that, move on to Pro League, and perform with exactly the same level or greater.
I rarely disagree with you, but I'm playing for the big prize pool.
Okay, I like it.
ALGS this year, they bumped up the prize pool. Give me a piece of those millions, you know. Just give me a small piece of it and I'll be happy. I'm retiring after today to go play. See you, deal.
Oh no, it's this time it's gonna be qualifier 4 with Jhow, but on screen. We'll follow him the whole time. Can you cast your own gameplay? That would be exciting. We'll see if we can get that going for you guys. Yeah, as we are loading into our first game of the day, though, a reminder, we got 6 of them. So whoever wins this game still's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I think the big thing talking about today, and I mentioned the meta at the beginning because it was such a big point of conversation after week number 2. You could look out on Reddit, on Twitter, and different areas that you see competitive talked about, and it was all about the Valkyrie comps and how some people might be they're figuring things out with Valkyrie, because a lot of people are kind of using it as that Hail Mary lucky play that, look, if we don't make it in the zone, let's fly in. The problem is, the later it goes into round 4, round 5, you have less and less places to land. And I think a lot of teams struggle sometimes in whether they should get in early or whether they should try and make that play. And when you get caught in between, bad things can happen, but we'll see how it goes here. It's time for game number 1.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be dropping in. For those of you with a keen eye, you would have noticed major pushers dropping in with a little bit of a deficit here. So the goal for them, of course, is going to be to win the whole thing. But the maybe more realistic goal right now is going to be to try and hold on to the power of that duo for as long as possible, get themselves as many placement points as they can, and pick off some kills, because they are the only team right now that has dropped in at a 1-member deficit. And as we take a look across the map, it's thankful for them Harvester isn't going to be contested, but there are a lot of teams that landed with Lava Siphon and Landslide, and I'm hoping some early action breaks out.
We do see teams make those rotations. I mean, if Kick was still in here, we remember there was a Kick iteration that would make that very play, but here we've got a pretty good idea. The old thermal, this is like old faithful for me. Whenever you see competitive, we've seen a lot of zones in here. There's the houses you can take. There's the God spot up on the northwest portion of that green circle. There's the lower south portion. I mean, that could be anywhere within thermal. So, there's a lot of teams that will be trying to get in there early, establish themselves. But the teams on the northern and eastern end, they'll have longer rotations. They'll probably be playing around those edge and chokes. And that's where the real action happens early.
Look at Oracle. We've got a pretty easy route inside, landing over here at Lava Fisher. Should be in position to maybe even claim that little rock and try and gatekeep some teams that come from the north, as there is just a little choke point bringing you inside of Geyser. For right now, we'll be continuing to try and find other folks that are having some success. Oracle taking a poke at them. It's worth noting as well that Geyser not landed on this game at all. We don't have a whole lot of overlap in terms of where people were landing, maybe a few teams in Skyhook, but it is odd to see such a common POI completely untouched.
I mean, we know that a team like Bearclaw would land there, but we don't see them. So maybe people just didn't quite value it the same way that a team like that would. We know it's a very isolated area. A lot of times comes with a crafter. A team like Noble, they take from NA, they take a very unique strategy where they'll land a couple of people in Geyser and one person just on the other side where No Name is, east of Frag East, and they'll hit the beacon. So there's different ways to play it. So we'll see if anybody adapts later, but right now, untouched.
Speaking of those sort of contested or uncontested drop spots, so you can see Red Dragon on your screen right now. They're facing north, but why are they facing north? They're facing north because they've often got other people that drop there. Eternal Love dropping in the northern end of Lava Siphon, taking that building right in front of Red Dragon right now and moving their way all the way through and potentially into Fragment rotations. Now, gonna have to take that long way around as Red Dragon have pushed them out, and already we can see people being forced into suboptimal scenarios, forced into weird rotations, and that's gonna cause some trouble later on, Jhow.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the choke on the northwest portion of Thermal, that choke up there. The same can be said for these teams that are trying to figure out what direction to go into. That southern point that is just kind of directly in front of where we're looking, that southern point near Tree, the rotation that comes over to Thermal, that can be another point where you can have the gatekeepers come in. You just have to wonder who's willing to gatekeep and not try and find their way in early. So it could just kind of be this trickle-down waterfall effect where one team goes in and another team takes their spot until you start to fill up a little bit. It's like, well, hold on a second. There's nowhere really to go. I guess we'll kind of hold here and we'll be the gatekeeper. So I wonder who's going to claim that role. And that'll probably be a couple minutes away.
Let me do that for a second as well. Ooh, hold on a second, because Major Pushers actually do have a third. They're under fire, which is a little bit of a problem, but I'm happy to say they've at least got the third member. It seems like that loaded in just in time. Now having themselves a little bit of a home inside of Thermal Station should be able to hold on to something for a little while, but is struggling to actually get any territory while Ranches is getting chewed through, honestly. Even with the purple shield, a little bit of support from his friends. Doesn't look like it's going to come through in time, and Fit ends up falling right now, forcing the dome and the res. This is going to need to be a really, really big reset for Major Pushers to stay alive as they push into another building with a whole other team. Kaza is going to find the first knock, and this is going to be dead inside that take out a member of Major Pushers.
I mean, this is catastrophic for game number one. If you are Major Pushers, it seems like they wanted to get to that southwestern area. Gate kept trying to shoot for each other, and that opened the door for a team to move in here to Donut Building. So Stanny and squad came in. They said thanks for the KP to the teams that are on the outside. Not only that, they say thanks for the real estate, Major Pushers. Now Major Pushers is going to have to play down a member.
Yeah, and they are still, I would say in a big way, without a home right now. They've got this sort of weird underside, but it isn't one of the more sustainable places to play, especially when they're trying to get their hands on that last member. Try and move back up to the 3-man stack that they can be. They're burning a lot of meds just to stay alive, and with just the white Evo as well, it is not the easiest thing.
I was just looking at the exact same thing. Like, my goodness, they have burned through so many. They've got a full squad beside them. Arcstar is actually going to cause some issues. Just barely clicked on them a little. They're actually willing to use the Jibby ult to at least buy space. I don't think this team yet knows that it's a duo, but they did get some damage in on them. They'll continue to do some checks on it, and they might get that information. While you can live under the scaffolding, being a duo in here, I mean, you can get aped real quick.
Yeah, and this is something that, you know, the teams will be paying attention to. Fortunately for them, sitting on the underside right now, there's a lot of other threats that you got to deal with, so they can hope that the same is true for the team cohabitating next to them. It's already round one, Jayhow, and already we are very much on the ropes, as Ranches now definitely not going to be rejoining inside of this first game, and it's up to Cleve and Fit to make this one work. I like the use of the ultimate accelerants here, not on the Gibraltar to try and keep that defensive bombardment up, but instead on Fit to try and make sure that they've got the ability to relocate as fast as they can.
I honestly think they could make a play now to the southwest of them. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too.
Nice.
That platform that's at that southwest is rather isolated. You have the walls there. I think that's where they're going to go. That's exactly the place that I think if you're a duo, you want to go. But that is not what you want to see sailing overhead. It's like, hey, remember that spot we were going to go to in that ult excel I used? Yeah, scratch that.
I can already see the angry tweets about Valk incoming on my timeline, because that just feels so bad to watch somebody soar overhead and take it away. Clean, they're not having that problem. We talked about them as being a big favorite coming into today. Right now, they look pretty darn comfortable over here all the way on the western side of the map. Nobody at their backs and completely able to use the cover of this building to their advantage. Still inside the next ring as well, and even the following one, as 30 seconds will determine how long they're going to be safe for.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Dolphin on your team, and if you're saying, hey, help me read some zones, where do we think this is going to go? They believe it's going to be that far southwestern corner, and we did see a lot of that first scan pull towards there, so it's entirely possible. And the building that they're in right there, it plays around all the different endpoints there. There's one slightly to the south of that. There's one slightly to the east of that. Either way, they're in the building that has nothing at their back except for protection, because there's a giant fall off. So Clean in an excellent position if it does eventually pull that direction.
Now, there is a team that I am looking for that I don't quite see on my screen right now as we take the big look out at Thermal, and that's Top Dogs. They, despite landing here, seem to be suspiciously absent inside of the fighting, and I also noticed that we've got 19 squads remaining. I want to see if we can find them, or if they've been eliminated already, which would be a really scary thing for that squad that do need to make a big performance today, make big waves. They were suspiciously absent or underperforming in the past two qualifiers, and we all know that from being around the scene a while, Top Dogs can do it. We'll see if we see them a little bit later on. Speaking of seeing,
You'll
you
see
like
her.
that? Yeah.
It didn't click at first, but I heard that sound and I was like, that's Seer. And then I looked down at the bottom left. I mean, normally I kind of anticipate what the squads look like, and they mostly look the same. Rare right now to have a Seer, so we'll see what impact that does have later here for Nemesis.
Big departure from the meta. I mean, I know that we talked about the Valkyrie, the Caustic. Gibraltar is unmoving, but already, I mean, going with a Wraith and a Seer. Wraith, maybe the less popular of the mobility options, is a pretty big risk for Nemesis in the finals, no less, as they've got plenty of ammo to work with for now, so taking pokes out to try and get those Evos up is the best move. So it seems like they're also pretty uncontested over here. They're going to be looking to gatekeep a team over by Tree.
Yeah, they hold a really good spot here. I mean, there's nothing that can really push through this choke outside of an accidental, like, stand in front, get knocked situation. So they can gatekeep here, keep an eye on things, and then have that rotational ability to get in there. That southern end that we talked about, that platform, is kind of the area that they'll look at. I don't know how they'll get in safely, but they do have balloon options. They have different ways they can get in because they aren't running that Valkyrie, but they do have a balloon there in front of them.
Crazy 3 gatekeeping AAS right now on the northern side of the map. We're going to be able to play pretty safely with the Wraith portal. There's a skyward dive available on the other side, but this is the point where things start to get a little bit risky with Valkyrie. If you do end up using that cooldown right now, where are you going? And if it's occupied already, do you have a backup plan? Because right now, pushing through Crazy 3, who are on double purple, single blue, about to get triple purple and just a little bit more damage, is going to be exceedingly difficult as we wait for the results of that push to come through. It seems like they got a little bit of a sandwich problem to deal with.
Yeah, if the zone were to be pulling this direction, many people consider this God spot. The spot just north of them, that rock, is normally controlled for the area right in front of them. But a lot of people do consider this the stronger spot when it does pull up this direction. If it comes here, they're in a great spot. If not, they still are the gatekeepers and still have a lot of defensive options. I actually really like this spot for Crazy 3. It's only if it does pull further south on what they'll do to cross that lava at the bottom. As you said, they do have the Valkyrie to get through. But I'm telling you, man, that southwest portion for all these Valkyrie teams, and, you know, we saw all the chatter about Valkyrie teams just kind of ulting and praying that they get in. I mean, there's not going to be many spots for people to land down there. We might see similar action coming off. We've got some action right now here. Flying Camels almost gets the knock there with the flat line.
And it's Red Dragons on the receiving end of that. Very, very low already. Both domes forced from both teams. But as the Eva comes out, seems like Red Dragon, they're fending them off. Wraith Q going to take Sofu to safety, but not so much for Carry Rubik, because now he's on the receiving end of a lot of fire from that squad running Seer. And Red Dragon, they're going to lose at least one, lose two now, and see if they can hold on to that third, as see Sofu, the last one to quite literally carry that banner forward.
Syringe.
Thank you.
Just gonna squeeze out there. I tell you what, PKMK is one of the most talented players that I have seen. We had the pleasure of casting them in a previous tournament as well. This person is phenomenal. I looked up at the kill feed. They did manage to get a couple of knocks. They ended up picking up, I believe, 2 KP in there. So it did make sure to get the thirst, but either way, they almost turned that around. That was a really tough fight, I think, for both teams. Might both be hurting in the long run. Hello.
Looks like we're getting another fight there as you hear that Wraith portal come through, and you know you got to be ready for it. Alpha Draft, hurting from the Thermite, is going to be able to pop the cell and get back into the fight as the rest of his team covers from long range. You still got that portal that you got to be aware of, and the very quick gap close that can come with it. Difficult to push AAS right now, as they're holding the truck, which is notoriously not the easiest place to walk up on. But Big Bam, they're making a good job of it right now, using the cover that they've got and forcing AAS to retreat back into the arms of Crazy 3. This is a very, very difficult spot to play.
I mean, if you're in that truck, you are between a rock and a hard place. You better hope that somebody else leaves, or maybe that is them leaving, because they have nowhere to go. I mean, all the teams that are on this end, that zone did pull much further south as per expected. So the teams that were in that top part, all of them have to go down, and it's much better to do it sooner than later. Zone 3, or round 3, I should say, you do have a few more opportunities because you have more space, and we're going to see Big do an exact similar rotation on where do they land, though. I mean, they have to figure that out after they go up and over. And AAS, they're finding their way out right now. And I mean, this is what I'm talking about. You just kind of come over and hope that you have space.
And for, I would say, like absolutely thanking their lucky stars. Major pushers are the ones that end up coming into those kills as well. AAS not having a home when they land, end up going down to the duo because of the delay. They can't actually find the fight. They've taken a lot of damage, and man, oh man, that is really some lucky stuff for major pushers. Really unlucky stuff for AAS. It seems like FigVam, they found a little bit more comfortable of a place to play, although certainly leaving them out in the open until this ring starts to close in from the north.
Phenomenal decision to come in here now, because in round 4 this will not be available. The fact that they're the first ones here, I'm a little surprised another team didn't try and occupy this with the amount of Vount teams that we saw. So big shout out to them for making it in. We do still see this could go further towards thermal, so they might have to work their way in, but they have a lot of cover, a lot of sight lines, and now we're going to see Crazy 3, the team that was holding the God spot. They're going to see if they can maybe occupy one of these buildings and move in.
Really nice move to make sure to scout this one out. Defensive Arc Star at the ready, knows that this building is not unoccupied, but they want to try and coexist. We'll see if that ends up working as Adam takes a big chunk, but now with the Eva out, it seems like it's time for the close range fight. Not sure if there's actually enough manpower to hold down this building that Crazy 3 wants, especially as Cronus ends up finding a big chunk and almost a crack on the blue right there. Adam, now fully healed up, is trying to get involved in the fight, but cannot quite as he received fire from the low ground. It seems like Crazy 3, that's a pretty darn successful push as they end up finding a whole kill on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, what they did there, I think was phenomenal. The fact that they were able to get that much damage onto the Valkyrie, it seemed the team that was holding here was very split in their decision-making. They either all needed to hold one or they all needed to move, and they got split really hard. And once that Wraith went to the other building, they just pulled the trigger and went for it, and they took out what I believe would be the Valkyrie there. So very easy pickup for them to go in and take one of those spots.
And we talked about split decision making at the start of the day. Surprise, surprise. Phoenix Legacy are the one that lose a member there. Liffin ending up going down, leaving his team as a duo now. We'll see how that one continues to play out as Crazy 3 have lost a member as well to a small overextension. We got a chance to see that Top Dogs are in fact in the game over there, is now panning back over. Got Mr. Arthur falling as well, another member of Phoenix Legacy, leaving just Sabs up.
Man, this is potentially one of those zones that's out in the open, and it gets pretty crazy down there. But we've got Jibby ults here around the scaffolding areas. Teams just trying to play under any cover that they can find right now, looking to potentially climb up. They do have to be careful of all the teams that are around them. There's going to be another Jibby ult. See if they have a bubble. You can see the climb is not quite working out here, and that has punished that Jibby getting shot in the back. Yeah, I mean, they messed up the first part of the climb. There's no way to hide around it. We had a pretty good view on it. They missed the climb, took a couple of shots, then some outside shots from a third party, and they got punished.
I mean, right inside of the very same sort of scaffolding is Major Pushers, who still as a two-man managed to survive through all of that. 3 kills on Cleave right now is not what I had expected from that start, and they've got all the loot in the world to work with as well. As Top Dogs may have claimed the kill up top, but it has ended up falling in the favor of Major Pushers as Top Dogs actually continue to clean up, finding even more pickoffs with teams desperate to find a home.
Yeah, that just... it's wide open here. I mean, there's very few head peaks. There's the blue boxes that you'll see that are around. Problem that you have with the blue boxes is they're generally in sight lines of the other. You can hide from one side, but you cannot hide from the other. As you said, Major Pushers with at least 4 KP. I don't think anybody expected them to be here when you consider that they were one of the first teams to lose a member. And they'll have to move in here undercover, and they'll have to continue to do it. And they still have work to do as we take a look now at Nemesis, that Seer team. We did see the Seer ult down moments ago, and here's some easy sight lines on top of Diner.
Seer Q is going to get so much value here as well, as everybody's forced to group up. They end up finding Flesh does ZMB, but doesn't actually get the knock, instead leaving that to someone else. It seemed like Knots is ending up finding a lot of damage right now. Nemesis still waiting on their own as they've got a few KP to work with, but are going to spot out. I believe that's Major Pushers right behind them, getting the single scan right now and working with very, very little information.
Major Pushers has a Kraber. They just got a knock. They now can be like, hey, look, back up. If I hit this shot, you do not push. So they actually have a really, I cannot believe if they pull this out as a duo, I will be completely amazed. But they are actually in a really good position. If they can pull off a couple of kills, I mean, just with that Kraber alone, I mean, either way, they can get potentially a top 5. Oh, I take that back. But they could get a top 5, top 6 finish, and next thing you know, like that KP adds up, and you now have a very good game number 1.
We're going to be watching that kill feed as it looks like Sabs, the last member of Phoenix Legacy, trying to survive inside of the queue, is going to emerge to, I assume, more focus, but it seems like it's actually bought her a little bit of time. Doesn't have the time to heal up just yet. Finally going to start popping that syringe. There's another fight going on right over the wall. She can't quite overextend to try and clean up that KP. Thinking about the Arc Star, I like the cheekiness here, but you know that on the other side of this wall, there is a world of hurt waiting for you. Is dead inside. Just wiped a squad and are going to be resetting.
Yeah, Fido was getting some knocks, but now it looks like they're succumbing in the kill feed. But we'll keep our attention here on the southwest end. Clean, they held position early. We see it hasn't netted them much. They're playing more for positioning here into the late game, but now they've got to start picking up KP. Some pretty fancy moves here from Unlucky, trying to get angles. There's going to be the thirst onto 1. Not sure if that was their KP. It looks like it might have been.
Top dogs.
They're going to try and keep this team out. Going to eat some of this damage. Unlucky taking more damage from the zone. They're going to go out. Nemesis, meanwhile, they're the team that were holding the other end. With this Seer, they're trying to make things happen with 5 KP, 4 squads left. They're trying to add to that total down to 3 teams.
They are absolutely making it work as well. You spot a Loba out on the side there, and we'll see how much value that can get as Nemesis continue to play with the cover that they've got. Grenades not even taking them out right now, as Fig Fam also playing with a decent amount of cover out by this rock outcropping. Have themselves a decent amount of loot to work with at the same time. It's down to these last 3 squads, though. Nemesis, Fig Vam, and we're going to find out who the third one is, as Top Dogs may have been eliminated, or that might be them right there.
Find out here in just a moment. 20 seconds away from this final zone closing. Each of them seem to have similar space between their current position. It is Top Dogs.
Nice.
Between their position and the zone at their back. So they have the potential to all kind of move in together, but once they all crest that sight line, I mean, it's a matter of which way do you shoot? And one of these teams has to make that decision. It looks like one of those decisions is being made for them.
Lord.
Is that's going to be a Jibby ult. That's going to get 1 member down so far, 0-0. It's actually going to get the knock on that, but they're going to be knocked in return. Did not get that KP yet. Nemesis, meanwhile, they're the ones that are sitting over, keeping an eye on things. 301 comes out and gets some shots here.
Looks like this might be a Nemesis Top Dogs taking each other out situation as Fig Vam. They just need to wait for this damage to come through and then come back and clean up. Not showing up the kill feed just yet as Top Dogs, they are losing members over and over. Nemesis trying to heal up in the face of a Gibraltar ultimate. Looks like they're going to maybe able to for right now, but Fig Vam, they have the high ground. And if I have learned anything from the internet, it is that this should win them fights. Fig Vam getting ready now with that Gibraltar Dome about to go down as well to find even more flesh. There's only a little bit of cover to work with here, but already Clone ends up falling, and Pew Pew is doing just that, following up his namesake. He ends up finding the last kill and taking the first game for Big Bam.
Positioning is pretty good. I think you're right on that high ground there, man.
So, Anakin.
That's such a weird conundrum to be in, is who do you push, and you got to try and push the easiest option. If you're the team that has to come out from your cover first, like Top Dogs felt that maybe they were there. Top Dogs and Nemesis, they ended up facing off. That's normally what happens in a 3-team standoff, because it's very rare that you all see them kind of collapse at the same time, and then you kind of have to decide which way to shoot. And sometimes you just kind of have to decide. It's like, well, what if we try and play for second, get some KP? Things started out really good there for Top Dogs, but it quickly turned against them. They weren't able to get that KP. So there was a few decisions made, didn't quite work out for them. Meanwhile, Fig just kind of chilling over there. They're like, hey, why don't you guys fight each other? We'll clean this up. And they did just that for a big game 1 victory.
Yeah, it's going to net them a lot of points, but I'm curious whether it was enough to take the top spot, because Top Dogs, as you poignantly mentioned, didn't actually end up finding the win, but they did find a lot of kills in the mid game, and I want to see how that ended up working out for them. We're going to take a break, we're going to do some quick math, and then we'll be right back to update you on game 1 and get ourselves going for game 2. Welcome back, ladies and gents, as we have had a great time already with Game 1 being full of surprises and that thermal zone being very, very exciting, Jay. How we talked about how there were a few odd things going on, though. The major pushers fight, top dogs not ending up finding the win, but still having a lot of kill points, and there's a lot of confusion here, so let's clear that up by taking a look at the points.
Yeah, Fig, a team that was absent last week, and in week number 1 finished what place, Dia? 20th.
20th?
They finished dead last in week number 1, so this is a major step for them to get into the contention for one of those 16 spots, but they were joined by teams that were fragging out of Nemesis top dogs and major pushers, the most unlikely team to be in the top 4, but somehow they got 10 KP. That was a there's 3 teams above them, and somehow they were the best team in that lobby by way of being a duo and pulling out the most kills in that game. That's unheard of.
Yeah, on paper, it really shouldn't happen. This should be impossible for major pushers, but the fact that they end up still getting top 4 in a game where off of zone 1, they were already at a massive deficit. They're operating at 66% capacity, J-How, which, I don't do a whole lot of math, but I'll pull it out when it's necessary. That is still topping a lot of other teams, and we came into today with a lot of doubts, or at least I did, about major pushers. This one has cleared up a lot of them for me, and I want to sort of take that goodwill that they had in game 1, that big performance, and see if they can extend that over the course of 6 games, because consistency is still that thing that we reward.
I mean, they got to where they wanted to be in the general vicinity, and you could see they wanted to get even further into where they wanted to go. They just didn't quite have the utility to get there. And they got caught out in between calls. The fact that they salvaged that is great, shows they know what they're doing. I think that was a small hiccup, maybe kind of eased in there, thought they were in there a little early, didn't have quite the contention that they thought that they would. Next thing you know, things went south, but they quickly turned it around. So I agree with you. I think that the best is yet to come. I mean, Ranches was out pretty early, so hopefully, he's warming up somewhere in the firing range to get ready for next game.
Yeah, we've got a lot of teams that I think that we can still expect pretty big things from. We talked about the Valk ult that ultimately was the end of AAS, but I'm really excited to see going into game 2 with maybe slightly different zone pull, different positioning, what they can pull out, because this was a team that was really impressing me in quarters and semis. Same thing with Phoenix Legacy, having a little bit of a difficult game at the end there, maybe able to pull it back. It is one of those things where finals tends to be a rude awakening for a lot of teams, because it is the best of the best here, and right now I am all about that underdog story. Fig Fam from 20th all the way to first out of the first game. Let's see if they can keep that going as we load into game 1, as we drop into World's Edge for the second time today.
It just goes to show that I think if you're here for 2, 3 potential of the finals, it shows that you're a quality team. It's very hard to get here over and over again without being a really good team, which means that if you're good enough to be here on multiple occasions, then it's very well possible that you could win one of these things and have your spot in the ALGS. So we're not looking at lower quality. We're just looking at how difficult Apex Legends really is when there's room for 20. I mean, there's certain lobbies that we've seen in the semifinals that are stacked. I mean, stacked. So to just get through semifinals sometimes is a challenge of its own. And here you can reap those rewards by being part of the finals.
Now, as we finally get the chance to drop in, we're, again, not going to have too many early contests, although I do want to draw you guys' attention to the left-hand side of your screen, right in the center, game 2 of 6. I know that I didn't illustrate this at the start of the day, but in case you've missed it, we are looking for 6 games, the most cumulative points over those. It's exactly how you win today, and it's something that I realized that we didn't talk about, and I couldn't go any further without mentioning. Now, though, we get the chance to see that the ring is pulling central, and that's going to determine the pace of the game. Jay, how's that one looking?
Well, Central is really great if you're already there, but sometimes you just kind of sit on your hands for a little bit. For everybody else, it means that you can play edge zone a little bit more. I think that's what we do see a lot of teams. They kind of play edge a little more when the rotations aren't as far, or they might take their time a little bit to hit the craft, or if they know that they're already going to be far, they'll take their time. But that kind of slows the pace potentially for other teams as well to do the same, meaning that you might get some more activity on that outer edge. But if you're one of those teams that does prioritize zone over that gear, and you try and get that armor by way of just getting in there and getting some shots, it works in your favor. So it kind of changes the style, and it really is just the teams that are involved and their general styles and how they feel. So if this was a set 20 teams every week, we kind of know how it would play. But that's the joy of different teams, different weeks, is that pace could change very rapidly with zones like this.
Yeah, I gotta say, the thing that I really like about central zones, when at least the first little bit is pulling around that fragment harvester area, is that it gives a lot of these teams the chance to play for how they land. And it's a little bit of an odd statement, but if you're landing Lava City, you're probably not a team that really likes to play zone. You're probably a little more comfortable playing edge. Same thing with if you're dropping into fragment east or harvester, you're probably a little bit more comfortable playing inside of the zone. And so when we do get the chance to pull to the center part of the map, I feel like everybody's able to play the play style that they know best. They've prepped for, they've chosen a landing spot around, and for only the second game, that is a lot of pressure to be performing at the top of your game, but it's something that I think that all these teams know, that this is their best shot to sort of show their own style.
This is no surprise to me at all. Clean with G Dolphin, former coach of TSM. When the zone pulls here, this is exactly where they go, because the zones, when you see this zone, there's very few end zone areas that you're going to see. Sometimes it'll be in this courtyard directly beside them. It could be in a couple of other nearby areas.
Oh, Lord. That
he got the knock.
That is such a sin right in front of the Sentinel as well. It is going to be Clean, likely cleaning this up, although they do end up losing a member. It's going to be an insta-res right now onto Unlucky, and Clean looking very much like their namesake there, as you do not get to take off in front of them.
Oh, they're instantly getting thirded. This could be devastating. This is really bad. Normally you kind of hold, but they kind of struck gold a little when they got that knock. Now they could be in for a treat. A lot of the teams we mentioned do like to rotate early or play edge zone. We very clearly see a lot of teams are prioritizing getting in. They might be able to recover from that, so that will be a major boost, but we will see that zone potentially in this courtyard area here next to them. There's a couple of other areas, but I think a lot of teams are anticipating here within the middle of Frag West / Capital City or Old Cap City.
As Clean, looks like they have managed to recover using the Gibraltar and Caustic. They'll breathe a sigh of relief. They got that early KP, and they're not the only ones. As Phoenix Legacy, they're also picking up a little bit of action in the kill feed as well. You can see right on the outside, there's some tension inside of Fragment, but a lot of teams that didn't have great game ones, they're starting to pick these things back up, and Clean with the KP is no surprise to see.
Just their positioning. I mean, this is par for the course for a team led by Dolphin. I mean, this is just, you expect this, and it's great to see that they read this zone so well. But now you're going to have the other teams that are here. They're actually looking to get slightly aggressive, maybe thinking nobody else is nearby. They get another knock. They could push in, maybe look for some more KP. You can get a little aggressive. The problem that you have with these comps is that you're so used to seeing Octane. Nice. You're so used to seeing Wraith in this scenario because they can get out. They have those get out of jail free cards, if you will. Not so much here. AAS, meanwhile, they've got the armor reads on them. And so it's all about Accent trying to hold them out with the Caustic, because this is not easy to be dealing with this much pressure over and over.
Yeah, to say that it is working feels like it is to call a losing battle right now, as they have been pushed into one room of the home that they occupied. Clean, though, don't want to overextend. It's because of the threat that we saw before. Even when pushing right outside of their building at like the 1 minute mark, they still almost got third partied. And right now, it's a game of going back, looting up, getting the meds. But if you don't find a lucky knock, if you don't find that first little bit, you don't get to push this, because you can really suffer quite a bit. As AAS, they're finding out right now, this is a battle that is going to cost both teams a lot, and it costs AAS the first knock of the fight. Alpha Draft ends up going down, almost ends up falling here. This might actually be a third party coming in on the side. AAS holding up there as we look over to Phoenix Legacy right nearby. Could end up going over to play rough with these guys, but instead are holding their own building inside of Fragment.
I think anybody that takes that building is more than content with just hanging out there, seeing how the zone plays out. But the fact that Clean was that aggressive, they know that they have a limited amount of time to generate KP before the rest of the team start to populate. They also know it's really hard to get third-partied from, say, up on top. The team up on top is willing to stay there. Oh my. Watch out for these arcs. Oh my goodness.
So losing
They
battle
are
for AAS
relentless right now is clean.
Yeah, you do not get to play this at your pace, and that is going to be the end of AAS.
Wait, that was a new team.
Finally, the push ends up coming through. It is, as it looks like Adam actually was the one that cleaned them up. So let's take a look and see if Crazy Threes now can try and take that momentum and turn it into their victory.
Man, I cannot believe how much action was in that building that early. I mean, for teams to just for Clean to come in waves, and now major pushers, they've just been kind of holding position for quite some time, and now they're looking for an opportunity as the team tries to rotate through here on Harvester.
Yeah, you want to talk about early action. I gotta remember that they do end up fighting with Odin pretty early, and I believe got some knocks there. Doesn't seem like it's translating into the KP for Fit, and this fight might not either, as he ends up getting burned by a Thermite and has to retreat back to the safety of his team. It's a fight over the Snake in Harvester. They're not going to be forced out of it too soon. The Zone 2 still in here, but you do have to look out for exactly what we saw in Fragment. The third parties that can come in behind them, and inside of the Snake, fighting on one end, the Zone 2 still in here, but you do have to look out for exactly what we saw in Fragment. The third parties that can come in behind them, and inside of the Snake, fighting on one end, the other one is wide open. And major pushers, they're in the most dangerous spot right now if anybody comes up behind them.
They seem to feel that they're getting the majority of this trade, and it looks like they are going to just see a Valk ult out right in front of them.
Dang.
And you did see that. I agree with you. I was starting to wonder too, with all this action going on for quite some time, you have a lot of teams that go in, but all it takes is one team to come in and ruin the day. And we already saw major pushers fight from behind early in game number 1. Now they've kind of taken a much slower approach here to game number 2. Didn't quite pick up the KP, so look to rotate in.
And they're going in sort of interesting rotation. I'd expected them to take the northeastern rotation through Harvester, just walk over into Fragment. But check it out. They're going through Landslide right now and trying to take maybe the longer, more scenic route into Frag, maybe get a little bit more cover there. I want to see how that plays out for them. What exactly they're looking for is showing up the kill feed. We got some other folks, as there it is. Ranch is finally finding a knock, and major pushers continuing to pick up these kills.
For them, it's great for them because they are on the outer parts of the zone, meaning the fights that they're taking are rather isolated. So they're limiting the amount of third parties while also flexing a bit because they know that their prowess, their abilities that they have, so that has given them some. Meanwhile, we also see Clean getting some kills in the feed, and for them, that's
Good
just
Lord.
picking up more KP, and there's several loot boxes for them to regroup and have plenty to fall back on.
How many people have died right here? This is quickly becoming the graveyard of the lobby, as Clean already have a red shield on Knots as well. I'm sure Unlucky's is not that far away. And with the Sentinel and the Mastiff, even Dolphin ends up finding a huge crack there, finds Flesh as well. This could be even more kills.
Dolphin is insane with this Sentinel right now. I mean,
that was disgusting.
Guys already so good. They're pushing. I mean, this is aggro as aggro gets, playing right on the fence line. A beautiful push. Now they need to capitalize on it. There's going to be the knock onto the Jibby. Boy, I tell you, that is a perfect bubble and a perfect play by Dolphin. I mean, you are struggling to find people that can understand the angles and the way to push that the way that he does, because he knew that as he crested the fence, he could play around his bubble, under threat or out of threat. Just, I mean, I don't want to call a game too. There's 14 teams left. I'm just going to put that out there. But boy, they are off to a hot start.
Oh, absolutely. They are by far in the best position right now, and it's up to the ring to change that. Right now, it seems to be favoring them, leaving Clean with plenty of room to work with. We ended up seeing DaBaby, the team that dropped earlier to try and take advantage of Clean's maybe distraction. They were the ones that ended up going down, leaving just Matva up here on the high ground that they previously held on this caustic as well. We'll see how long that can continue, as right now still is going to be, it looks like, inside of the next zone right next door to Clean, which is not where I would pick to be, but it's better than nothing.
There's the courtyard endings near, like, just north of Market, but there's a couple of zones that are around the res point and that bridge across the lava right in the middle. Those are like, I'm gonna be honest, those are the worst zones to play in competitive. There is nowhere to go and it is utter chaos. I mean, it might be one of the most wide open, where do you go type of zones. I saw one the other day, or this weekend, that was on the bridge even there, which is very rare. So if it does pull there, woo, I don't know if we'll make it to round number 6. And if it is, it's going to be a messy round number 6.
It could be a real bloody game. We'll keep our eyes on that upper left corner on the map to see where zone ends up pulling. For right now, major pushers, though, right in the center of your screens. They're looking for yet another kill, or yet another couple kills, rather, on the squads in front of them. Two different teams have tried to make their way in through this choke point and have yet to find any home inside of Harvester. With the Replicator now to play around for cover, major pushers, if it weren't for this ring, I feel like they're the most comfortable in the lobby.
Yeah, and if it does pull further down, they can take a quick hop into construction. You can coexist in construction on several levels. 2nd, 4th, and 5th are your best. But there are 5 levels. Normally 1st and 3rd, you get shot from 2nd and 4th, so you got to be careful there. But Fido has over 200, or started with over 200 wingman shots, continuing to fire, not quite hitting the way that I think that he anticipated, but still plenty of shots to take.
Suppressing fire is what it is. And he's definitely keeping these teams afraid down there. As Red Dragon, one of the teams on the low ground, but not next to major pushers. Instead, inhabiting all the way in the east, this train station inside of Fragment. Watching their backs for right now, are going to be trying to find some picks from range, as there's not a whole lot of close-up fights that they need to take just yet. But again, it is all going to be determinant on that ring, as taking a look at some teams in streamer building as well. They've got to be careful. It looks like Matfa has fallen in the kill feed, though, so that is going to be the end of DeBaby for this round. We'll see how they come back in round 3.
I'm just curious if they went up to get that kill, or he came down to try and get banners. And, you know, when you run out of spaces to go, there maybe got third-partied, had to jump down and fell into the waiting arms of Clean. So Clean, with a lot of early KP, are our kill leaders and points leaders for that. Still a lot to be determined here. 13 squads, all full squads. We've got 39 members left as round 3 is about to close.
Doesn't look impossible for Clean right now. That's what I'm gonna say. Is they've already maybe not found themselves first place, which will be a little bit more difficult, but getting themselves the early KP could just be enough to push them into first place, regardless of how they place in the actual standings here. Dead Inside, they're the ones inside a streamer building, though. We saw Red Dragon taking a look at them earlier, and they get to police the high ground up here as well. No shots on the longbow just yet, but Dead Inside do have the scan available to them on the next ring as well, because they've got this Valkyrie, they've got the dome to use with Kaza, and could be the only team operating with actual information right now on this next ring.
Yeah, I was trying to keep an eye on things as best I could while you were carrying that, but somehow major pushers found their way to Clean, and Clean took out 2 members of major pushers in the blink of an eye. It does look like one of them was rezzed based on the numbers at the top right. So Clean continuing to just deal with wave after wave after wave. And I believe Clean does kind of have to make their way out of that building before long. But it is pulling up near them. They read the zone. And now it's up for Clean to maybe put a stamp on this game. They have a lot of teams to go through. But make no mistake about it, they are finding ways to make a lot happen based off their early positioning, and they're trying to make more happen as Jibby ults are going down, as they try and move up and get some of those kills. Unable to follow up just yet. Once the dust settles, look for them to push over this hill.
There are very, very few times in my life where I see Gibby Bubble go down and I go, that's not going to keep you safe, and this is one of them. And it's when Clean are right next to you, ready to take those kills. They sweep them away, and that is going to be the end, as it looks like major pushers losing members to Top Dogs as well. Might be yet another squad that has met their untimely demise. Top Dogs moving down here. Looks like we still have got one more member to work with, as Fit didn't instantly explode into a box, but Top Dogs, they're going to make short work of anybody standing in their way.
Now, that was major pushers. I don't believe I think they actually have 1 member potentially. Yep. So for them, they're in trouble. Meanwhile, Top Dogs holding at the edge of zone, and with this Loba ult, as things close in, they'll have a lot of loot available to them, infinite ammo, if you will, on top of it. So now they have a team in Diner they'll have to deal with that will likely want to try and come into their building. So in a great position to hold out one team and potentially pick up more KP.
And I mean, while we're talking about the Loba, a legend that doesn't get run super often, I want to know whether Nemesis still ended up choosing to run the Seer. That was not the biggest factor for them in the first game, but you know, we can't deny that it ended up having some decent results. There's still the option to take these slightly unorthodox picks, things like the Crypto maybe showing their value. As right now, Top Dogs, we'll see how much that building ends up being valuable to them as they're getting pushed. In the meantime, Nemesis still running that Seer, are going to be burning the ult a little bit defensively. Top Dogs definitely playing offensively inside their own building as the nades start to push you all together, and the shotgun will make short work of you. Already, Top Dogs find that one knock onto Oracle. They're looking for a second, and without losing or dropping a single member, they clean wipe Oracle off the face of World's Edge.
I just love the angles that they took there, Dia. I mean, they knew that that team from Diner had to come in. The Jibby ult tried to buy that little bit of space. They bubbled forward. But the angles that were taken from 0-0 and the team there, they covered the angles. They had grenades. They forced the grenade. They say, you go one way or you eat this nade. And no matter what, there was nowhere to go. 0-0 took a major flank there, came in behind. It was a great team effort, but it was 0-0 that did a lot of damage in that fight. So great defense here by Top Dogs.
And in the kill feed, the action continues to happen as ZMB ends up getting downed again for the second time in a minute. Nemesis losing their Seer once more. We'll see if they can continue to hold on. Top Dogs finding flesh out here, might look for more kills themselves. The R301 certainly going to be valuable at a distance, but they will have to push in a little bit more. They're safe for right now, but it's only until this next ring starts to close. It seems like we're encountering a few technical difficulties, unless I'm wrong, JL.
Yeah, we'll be back in just a moment. There we are. By the way, Mimu had been farming earlier, 1,800 damage. One of his teammates has about 200 to 300 now, so clearly making use of the Jibby for these shields, but they've earned them in other ways also. Now they've got their eyes on a team directly to the north. The market is where you can exist with one, potentially two other teams, but they will fight. There is no doubt about it. They will fight, and they will fight furiously for that spot. Meanwhile, Eternal has what you could consider to be the best position in the game now. Do have a few sight lines they have to cover. They do have to hold on to this choke. Looks like they're going to check the bridge underneath, but they do have a position that overlooks everything.
And with this Crypto as well, they've got the information on the rings. You hear that Valkyrie ult going off, though, and you wonder who it's going to land on, because right now, there is really no space that is unoccupied. It might be Top Dogs trying to relocate, as they had a lot of different threats that could approach them. As Eternal, continuing on this fight right now, still have a really great position. We've seen this played out time and time again. Crypto can hold this building for ages, and it looks like with Eternal to back him up, it is going to be easy. Top Dogs find another kill in the kill feed. It seems like Eternal are on their way out, actually. Jellycord almost going down there, having to reload, and still alive. The shield swaps are coming in, but this is a fight to the death with Eternal.
Oh, Bambino was eating so much damage from a thermite, but they all are living with minimal health, so they have to succumb to potentially an onslaught of Jibby ults here. Bloom, Lord. That might be their own, and it looks like it is. Meanwhile, Clean, they're the team now holding part of market. So down in the top 8 now with 7 KP. Clean is trying to bunker down here in the middle by way of the caustic barrels. Just watch that kill feed and you will see explosions and fireworks all around.
Dead Inside also showing up there. We'll see how far they've ended up making it as Clean try and push out, try and take a little bit of a different angle, but end up having to burn their defensive utility early. Now, I believe they're sandwiched right in between Top Dogs and another squad out there on the side. Pushing out of market will be exceedingly difficult for them, and staying in might just be even harder as the grenades will continue to rain down. And you can see items being swiped away left and right by the Loba around them. Kaza shows back up in the kill feed, and it looks like this might be a Dead Inside game as well. We've got 3 very strong contenders, and Clean are being naded out. They can't stay here.
I mean, how do you have this many nades? How? It's the Loba. The Loba is grabbing the nades and they are shelling them out of the middle of market. Only Unlucky is down, so they can play behind the shield. It looks like they will get a res off. See if they come around the defense. And now it's got to be one member. It's down to Nags here. And played behind the shields, it's not going to do it. 0-0 moves in for the kill and takes out clean. They're now the new kill leaders. 5 teams left, 13 members, and we are going to have our final zone closing in now.
Dead Inside want that spot, though. They saw Top Dogs take it, and they know that Top Dogs are the scariest team in lobby right now. They end up finding a laser, do Top Dogs instead, but no knock right there as they play around the edge of the zone, taking a lot of damage from it, no less. 4 teams left remaining, 0-0, 5 kills in the lobby. Already has so many points for this team, but there's a chance to get even more lying right in front of them.
Just remember, there is a crypto and the ult is available if they get it off, and when they get it off, could be devastating for all the Gibby teams, all the teams with the defensive areas around them. And here it goes. Out comes the EMP. It's going to go off. It is going to do a lot of damage and take all the defensive measures away. Meanwhile, they're going to poke up over this staircase. They're getting some shots in. Top Dogs, they're getting some damage as well, getting some knocks, trying to finish off their KP.
Top Dogs are out.
Eternal, the team with the position. They're going to be in the top 3 now, and down comes a little bit more KP. Top 2, Eternal looking to finish this off with the members already down. It's going to be Eternal is going to be the champions behind that crypto ult here in game number 2.
And oh my lord, great play from Eternal there, using the EMP and cleaning up out of the chaos as it seems like at the very end there, Top Dogs and I believe it was Dead Inside, Top Dogs and Dead Inside that were trying desperately to fight each other ended up bringing about their own demise by letting Eternal have the run of market.
They ended up playing that low ground and just surprise. And when that EMP went off, all those teams between your Caustics and your Jibbies and all the things that you thought were going to be what could keep you alive, just blink in an instant. Those shields that you had that are red, here's 50 damage. I don't even know how many he hit, but that was like one of the fattest crypto ults you will ever see. And it couldn't have come at a better time for Eternal to win that game. That was monstrous.
You know what? I bet that off of this, we see a few more cryptos picked up as well because they made that look good. I wonder though, Jay, how good they made it look because there was a lot of KP picked up around them, and Eternal may not have grabbed that top spot. We're gonna take a break, we're gonna do some math, and then we'll let you know whether Eternal actually managed to take the win, as it looks like they did. Welcome back, folks. Have you had a good day? I've had a good day. We have been sitting here watching some amazing Apex, and 2 games deep now, we have seen a variety of stories play out. We've seen a variety of people pop off, but interestingly enough, Jay, how we saw Eternal take the last game. Let's find out if that put them at the top of the standings. This 21-point game, pretty large.
That is a massive game of the utmost proportion when you consider how big that EMP at the end of the game was. So they definitely made the play of the game, but it's clean. Despite not getting that top finish that they wanted, still put up a respectable 15 points behind 12 kills that game. So a really good game from them. Dead Inside, we saw great positioning from them, making another top 3 finish. But Dia, you have some thoughts on Top Dogs as well, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that Top Dogs in 2 games both managed to be in the top 3 both times and have accumulated themselves, like you see, 13 points right here. That's what puts them nice. Oh, it was perfect at the top of the standings. Top Dogs. The consistency is the thing that is separating them right now, and followed up by Dead Inside and Big Vam. Really, really great stuff to, like, sort of reward that consistency that we talked about, the ability to replicate getting yourselves into the top 5, getting a few kills every game, and it's what's keeping them right at that #1 spot. They're not that separated though from everybody else. From 7th and up, we are at 20+ points, and 1 game could push even major pushers all the way to the top.
Yeah, it's pretty top heavy. Normally it's 4 to 5 teams, and it might be that way after round 3 and round 4. But to see that many teams within 8 points of each other, I think is a testament to how good these teams are at the top. They're going to be vying and competing with each other throughout the day. Still have a lot more games left, still 4 more games left. So I'm excited for that. And man, still anybody's game. Nobody distancing themselves yet. Could come here in game number 3.
Yeah, you and I were talking about, I mean, I mentioned major pushers there who were sitting right at the sort of bottom of the top heaviness right now, having a little bit of an odd way out of the game last time. It was off screen, and they, we assume, ended up Valculting there, but that's the sort of volatility that comes with the Valkyrie that we've already seen on display several times. I want to know if people start to move away from that now, because zone scans were extremely rare last game, as there were only a few teams that were actually able to get to the beacon, and Eternal was one of them. Using the crypto, you've always got access as long as there's a beacon even remotely close to you.
I'm just looking to see if there's any other cryptos coming in. I mean, that's what I want to know. Was that enough of a statement for somebody to say, you know what, like, we have a pocket crypto strategy? It looks like that answer is going to be no.
Dang.
Our teams remain untouched. We still have the Seer, Dead Inside, still running a Loba, as well as Top Dog. So a couple of Loba teams, probably the more, I would say I'd take a crypto before a Loba, but it's hard to deny, because I think if we watch Top Dog's perspective, we got to see the receiving end for clean, which was awful. You know that they're yelling, why are there so many nades? But it had to be the Loba ult grabbing nades and just bombarding the middle of market. I think that's exactly what happened there. It ended up playing out very well for them in the late game, which is kind of hard to do with a Loba in going into round number 6.
I tell you what, this is just for you, Jay-How. There's a way to make that even better as well, because if you're running Fuse, that I know you and I have talked about as an answer to crypto, and you grab what would normally be 1 nade, you end up grabbing 2 for the price of 1 on Fuse. You can increase your late game economy. So maybe we see that adaptation come out. I'm going to hold out hope, of course, for the sort of unorthodox picks, but the synergy is there.
Zone pulling more center of the map, slightly further east towards Frag East. Could be out in the open, could be near that middle. We'll find out, but teams now will be gathering that info. A lot of beacons on the map for teams to get that. You know, real quickly, because this is going to be the only time we talk about it. If 1 or 2 fuses, and I don't mean everybody running a fuse and him being meta. If there was 1 or 2 fuses in the game against caustic teams, it is very frustrating if you are not the Fuse team. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not saying Fuse should be meta. I'm just saying if 1 or 2 teams decided to use Fuse, like all those teams, you put a knuckle cluster in there, they pop cans, they flush you out. They are the bunker busters of caustic teams. Just saying, it would be fun to see one team try it.
Yeah.
Selfishly.
Yeah, you guys at home, go out there and try it yourselves. You tired of seeing Caustic in your solo queue games? You pull out the fuse, you show them what's what, and I tell you what, you're going to start seeing a lot less of it. You might even start seeing it up here. Speaking of up here, we're all the way over in Skyhook with Phoenix Legacy. Still had a much better game last game than they did in the first one, but still waiting for that real pop-off performance that we know that they had and that they are capable of in the semifinals. Now, maybe with a little bit of a better position, able to take the north of Fragment West, as we did see them taking height pretty early on last game, but couldn't convert it into the late game win.
I think frag zones are really hard for a lot of teams. I mean, it's just so hard when you have anybody at any given time can run into your building. We saw that north side where Clean was, the amount of teams that funneled in there. I think that does make things difficult when you don't have height on buildings the same way that you would in other areas. So I'm never surprised when you just kind of throw things in the air and see where they land. But I'm also not surprised that we did see teams like Clean, Eternal, and Top Dogs all in those top spots. And that's no surprise to me. It's just all the other teams that might not play it as well can make your life even more difficult.
As now on the rotation, Phoenix Legacy want to try and keep their lives a little bit more on the simple side. Rotating after 2 minutes on the timer on the left is a little bit risky. It's a little bit late, but because they're so close to this ring, I think it'll work out just fine for them. Are going to be just taking the initial beacon scan potentially right here and finding out, as we already know, that we're pulling more towards Fragment East this time around. There we go. They are going to take that information and maybe be able to move themselves in a little bit closer into a little bit of a better position, as I assume we've already got teams in Fragment, much like Clean, shall I say, that have likely already picked their building to hole up in.
When you're in Frag East and the zone pulls to Frag East, it's probably easy to decide where you want to go before anybody else. So taking a similar position and building, when you read this zone, that building is great for just kind of playing around the edge, but I don't think it's great long term. See how they handle it this game. We kind of shift gears a little bit over here towards No Name. See how many teams are going to value this real estate, because even if you can't get into Frag East, it's not a bad place to play for several of our teams to find a home.
Yeah, and there are a lot of zones that will push you right outside of here. Very, very likely, actually, that we see one land a little bit north or south right on the hill. We've seen much of that action previously in Flying Camels. They're in the best position to take advantage of it with the G7 and plenty of meds to bolster their shields all the way up with all the poke that they can take at teams that need to approach them. See if that ends up working out for them. They've got the beacon as well, so really the blessings of No Name are difficult to count on one hand, as you can keep working with them the later that the game goes. For right now, though, it's going to be sort of a war of attrition for a lot of these teams, as right now we're getting our first couple knocks of the game, and actually our first elimination is, very surprisingly, Phoenix Legacy. They're gone.
Yeah, I don't know what happened on that side. We've got plenty of action over here on Frag East as well, but one team out. You know, you mentioned the hill to the north here, that ridge. That ridge can be a dominant position for one, potentially two teams, depending on how they choose to share those head peaks. So you've got a lot to look forward to. Major pushers, unlike last game where they were late to get into the zone, they made sure to get here early, and they are not met without resistance, as they have a lot of things going on in their building.
Oh lord, and it just keeps going as well. There is a portal here for them to get out via, but Major Pushers want to hold on to this for as long as possible. They're taking the bottom floor, and I assume trying to coexist right now, as this seems to be the play for them that isn't really contested. It seems like Eternal is the team above them, as that's the only crypto in your lobby, and you know who you're cohabitating with.
I mean, you've got two of the top teams that are trying. This is not an easy building to cohabitate in. I mean, I am surprised that they're willing to stay in here. It shows how much they value these spaces. Maybe if things calm down, a third party gets involved, and you know, the team on top generally has the better position because they can choose when things happen. We're going up and holding. Here's that third party, or excuse me, third party by way of just walking outside is Cleave getting some serious damage in with that Hemi.
Yeah, with that little bit of repositioning there, they can sort of imitate what it would be like to have a team pressure from the outside, and that starts to take its toll as actually Dome ends up getting forced to buy Fit the time to pop that Phoenix kit. Major Pushers now the ones in the defensive position, and they're wasting a lot of ammunition, of meds, of attention on each other. You talk about that third party, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Either there's a team in the building next to them, or Major Pushers just really wants to try and take this fight early because they know there aren't a lot of teams that can really third party from the outside because there's so many teams nearby that they just get shot coming in. So they must be really bent on fighting early. It's actually very surprising to see a team commit this hard. It looks like things have tempered down, but we're going. Oh, that's a stick! That's a big play!
It's actually so huge for Major Pushers, as now they should be able to dismantle Eternal up here, take them out of first place. Already the first knock coming in. This is going to be a Major Pushers cleanup, or at least it looks like it, as they end up losing two. And somehow is this being turned around? No, it is not, but it might be being third-partied as Cleave receives that Arc Star, takes it with grace, and now needs to get that res off before being pushed entirely out of the zone.
You hear the footsteps. They got an armor swap off here. Major Pushers, Fido trying to survive, but it's going to be the caustic gas causing a lot of problems. Can't quite get out yet with one health left. I mean, where do you go here? Nowhere. The answer is nowhere. I mean, what a commitment, though.
Yeah, that was, I mean, off the back of the Arc Star, you understand it, but it hurts a lot to go out like that, as Major Pushers and Eternal both not going to be feeling very happy given what just went down, as they were in contention for top spots, leaving, what is that, 19th and 18th? I mean, not going to be getting you a lot of points.
It is a surprising call.
Mm-hmm.
I think this early in the game, but they off the Arc Star, it kind of changes the amount of time they committed to it, the results that end up going out of it. Maybe they had something with Eternal. I don't know, but make no mistake about it. That's two of our top teams out, and we got our first look at Clean, who's holding Streamer Building, as they are right dead smack in the middle of the zone, trying to get a read on things, and it looks like it will be pulling more towards that center area.
And they, again, much like teams before, I believe it was Eternal, that have the ability to read the next zone as well. Not a whole lot of data available, as I believe there's also, there we go, a beacon in No Name that will give Flying Camels a little bit of data as well. But once we move in towards this zone, once the ring ends up closing, that information is going to come at a premium. Take a look at the bottom left and bottom right of your screen, though, and you can see dead inside of top dogs, a few more teams that are crowding up the top spots right here, trying to play things a lot slower.
Weeb's out. Looks like they're getting a respawn, but one thing I took note of from that map, by the way, Red Dragons is holding that choke that holds off the Dorito hill that comes up. And if it does pull out towards that southern area out in the open, I think they actually have a really good spot. Nemesis just to the east of them, to the left of our site, now to the right is where Red Dragons is. We'll just say to the west at this point, as he's kind of going back and forth. So these two teams actually control the fate of a lot of teams that are trying to make their way in, but they also will end up potentially intersecting with each other or influencing the decision-making of each other as time goes on with these future zones. But right now, I think these two teams in a very good position.
Yeah, you've got to be wary of threats from both sides, of course, but if you can clear that out, if you can have the ring at your back, you can both collect KP and put yourself on the high ground really, really nicely, as Nemesis are the ones that are making Dead Inside's life difficult right now by holding this choke. Dead Inside caught over by Geyser are going to need to move in the next 20-odd seconds, as that next ring will start to close, and it seems like they've just decided to ditch this and go ahead and pressure Red Dragons, who we mentioned earlier. This is a risky move, and it is one for that KP.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an easy... I mean, they're pushing off minimal information. They've managed to retreat for now.
Oh,
somebody poked out of the box a little too much, and now Nemesis being punished, and they are being run down. Those are Eva shots just running straight at them. Portaling trying to get to some safety. Remember, that tactical is out. Don't mind me just passing through here. Nemesis with an errant push now seems to be potential demise. Clone, the lone member left of that.
Flying Camels are the ones coming up from there, and hey, we talked about Dead Inside pushing up on the other side. They're going to end up cleaning up this kill as you scatter to the wind, off towards No Name, off towards Geyser. You find out you had a lot of enemies, and Dead Inside are definitely one of them. They end up finding the last kill to clean out Nemesis, our one seer team, and now Red Dragon. They're also holding a lot of teams out, but are getting punished themselves, opening themselves up to a lot of damage. That Wraith Portal gonna end up being burned by Hisofu to get them to a little bit of safety right inside of the storage containers. Rubik pops the shield bat and will be safe right now as Red Dragon give up control of the choke. It gives both Top Dogs and Dead Inside the chance to once again find themselves inside the ring.
Gibeol coming down. They know that there's no bubble. Rubik, meanwhile, taking a lot of damage, split from the team. Did I miss something on the portal?
No, that's a Rubik push all on his own. Wanted to try and hold that choke, and right now is at least alive. Ended up burning the defensive bombardment to keep himself that way, and Red Dragon do manage to somehow maintain control of everything they started with. They come back to their spot, and it is untouched.
I am very surprised at how this is playing out. I don't know if that's intentional or whether there was some miscommunication. They're having to adapt, but they seem to have recovered against what I would say looked like some pretty heavy odds there for a moment as one member got split, but it was enough for Red Dragons now to go back to this choke. They wanted to kind of get out of the central area that we know the teams from the east would have eyes on them, don't want to get pinched. They do have to make their way in, though, from here along this wall, maybe less people to contend with, but I am very surprised that they regrouped as well as they did. That's a fat nade.
That is a really big one, and it's going to be the push that comes in for Red Dragon off the back of that, finding yet another nade. I believe they got the shield swap behind there as well, though with an Arc Star coming in, it's going to interrupt quite a bit of it. Hisofu actually has to back off entirely, and even that nade not being enough tells you a lot about how hard these teams are fighting to keep themselves in the game. They are not giving up ground. They're not giving up anything, as you need every last inch of space to get yourself that win. Speaking of space, Flying Camels, they've had nothing but they have picked up plenty of kills in the meantime, and it looks like Top Dogs from the back, they're taking Red Dragons out of the picture in the kill feed.
Yeah, it just became such a difficult spot to hold. As you move up there, you just become more and more exposed. Flying Camels could have gotten in, but Flying Camels actually just got a scan on the beacon. Looks like they might try and make a Valk ult in, find some space to get to. They do have a tough rotation if they do want to just walk in. They can kind of play under the bridge. I think that's where they're pinging now. But if they're pinging that there's an enemy there, they definitely have to go up and over, and it looks like they might be preparing to do just that.
Yeah, they do have to be careful, very much so, as we've already seen how this one can pan out. Major pushers already having fallen prey to it. We'll see if Flying Camels, they end up being a team lucky enough to survive, as right now they at least don't take a whole lot of damage on the way up. Now might be playing out of bounds, thinking about it. Instead, it's
so
land
bold.
right in the middle of Fragment. Yeah, this is super risky. There could be a team inside this building, and they would have nothing to do about it. It's already Microfibers goes down. There is a team in this building, and it is not going to be easy to survive, as even the caustic gas is keeping them under control right now. Top Dogs on the side here might be able to push in for a few kill participation themselves on a team that is already in a difficult position, as it seems like they've managed to reposition using the Wraith Portal out to the side, but are now under fire from an entirely different squad. This is a super rough spot to be in, as AAS lays fire into Flying Camels. Look more like Frying Camels right now, as that's going to be yet another one gone. And Skytex, the last member left alive on the Gibraltar, who absorbs bullets. It's the end of your story.
This is the zone that I talked about last game that is miserable for every competitive team I've ever seen. I don't think anybody's a fan of this zone. It is what it is. This is how the game plays out. It creates fireworks. Now, it could end on the bridge, but there's a couple of spots near that respawn beacon right there. There's a little head peak that you'll see one team play. Everything else is playing around trucks and boxes. And I think for Clean, they still are going to be in the zone, albeit only part of their building going into the next zone. They're in a decent spot. But if this does indeed pull to the other side of that split in the lava, my God, Dia, I mean, it is crazy how that zone gets. It's already going to be pretty nutty. it just is going to be real crazy from zone 5 to zone 6.
Yeah, because it is going to be a very difficult thing for a lot of teams to compensate for, no matter which way it goes. And right now, or at least Clean do have the chance to pick themselves up a little bit more KP before things become too complicated, trying to watch their backs right now at the same time as they keep eyes on teams that are rotating in, not playing the highest of high grounds as they don't want to be lasered from too far away either, but Clean have managed to take up a lot of real estate, control most of World's Edge that is available to them right now, and putting themselves in another great position as 13 squads remain. We are still really up there in terms of how many teams are yet to fall before the next fight.
Clean's about to have company. Teams are coming across from train right now. I don't know how many members from this. It's going to be a knock onto Matva. So they got one. They need to try and do this cleanly. It's going to be number 2, NP1G, and then it's going to be the Thirst and the Kills. It's going to be another team out down to 12. And you got to imagine teams are going to funnel in. Limited. You can play under the bridge, you can play on the truck on the bridge, you can play here, and you can play on the bridge in there. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Teams are going to come in and try and take that. That's a stick onto Dolphin, trying to trade with them as much as possible. He's going to be the first one down. It's up to the rest of the team to try and get them out. Not willing to give an armor swap over. Dolphin is going to sacrifice himself to the zone.
Now is a little bit more for Clean to work with, as they were up against the duo that was dead inside, who now are trying to coexist with them. Pre-firing a few corners. Unlucky is not going to find any purchase, but Clean continue to move themselves up, like you say, with a sacrifice in tow. Now trying to pick up Kaza. They might end up going down. Will dead inside is pushing Clean. Still definitely a risky play. But with the gold shield, has a little bit more sustain. Kaza ends up falling, and now Clean move in for that final kill. They got the Evas, they got the close range shots, and they just managed to get the crack and the knock. As that's going to be the end of Dead Inside.
They have a Moby. They have a Moby.
That's crazy. That's crazy,
This could be a game-changing moment. They do still have to get the banner. There's 30 seconds left.
Do it.
Oh, no.
There's a caustic down there.
If there's one person that can make it.
Oh, God, get it. Oh, God, unlucky, unlucky. He's lucky. He's not lucky. No, Oracle. They end up fighting him, and man, oh, man. That's a rough way to go out, is trying to find their teammate. Clean lose yet another. Knots now knows. We'll see if he can work with that. Oracle, though, they end up picking up the kill. Clean unlikely to walk away with this win, but Oracle running a duo right now. They at least managed to find themselves some points here.
That was always going to be an almost impossible play because you have to jump down, grab the banner as you're grabbing that and the zip. It's already too late. The zone's going to close in, so I think Dolphin's just going to die to the zone. Will that put pressure on the rest of the team? We'll keep an eye on things, but it's here under the bridge. Oracle goes in, tries to get a peek in. There is a caustic ult that will go out, do some damage, but Oracle just trying to move forward here. I mean, there's a little bit of cover up here, but it's not going to be without contention.
That is just a straight up full send here as well from Dolphin to try and take out the team that cost their lives. Now Oracle move on with just the one member with the ring at their back and an Arc Star in front of them. Sanka has a tall order to fulfill. 8 teams remain right now, and somehow Sanka's found a corner of safety to work with.
This zone, I mean, I'm surprised there's 8 teams. Okay, we're down to 7 top dogs. They are on the top of the leaderboard almost, and they might end up on top after game number 3. A couple of our top teams out early. Here's those boxes, but here's the problem that comes in with those boxes. You can't go around them. The zone is too tight. So the only thing at your back is the zone. You have to fight your way out, fight your way forward, and that's what they're trying to do. They'll eat a little zone damage to try and go to the other side, but Mimu is going to be down and out, down to 6 teams left.
It is literally just shooting fish in a barrel at that point with no dome to work with. Top dogs put themselves at the mercy of everybody else, and as we very quickly find out, Apex not a merciful game. Crazy Threes showing us that right now as they try and gun a man down from the sky. It's not going to end up going their way, as they now hold the position that Eternal did just last game, a commanding one inside of this final ring.
You've got the team that pops out a broken building, the team that pops out from underneath the hill. Those are the team, or underneath the bridge. Those are the teams that have the old peekaboo strategy. There is a caustic in there, so one of those caustics can eat that. The other one, I believe, would be the Jibby. Meanwhile, Adam sitting here with the scout kill leader for this game. Looks like Crazy 3 putting themselves in a good position to not only get a lot of KP, but a top place finish.
I think they're going to be able to pull this one off. They've got the positioning, they've got the cooldowns right now, and they found a knock as well right there at the R301. Nicely done. Running a little low on ammunition, though. We'll see how Crazy are managing to balance their resources. Ending up popping a lot of shield bats right now, and my curiosity was with who is on this respawn beacon. Who is that team? Because they've got another one of the best places to be inside of the ring right now. The caustic ult, it's going to force Crazy 3s out and into the arms of the beast. Dome ends up falling out from Adam, and the damage is really coming through as AAS from the back. They're sandwiching us in right into the center of World's Edge. They lose 2, with Alpha Draft being the last one alive. Can he hold down the fort? 5 squads remain, but we're going to move to 4. 3 very quickly. Chichivicha under the bridge now are the ones that need to find a way back in, up against Play, who's surprisingly weak at this point, trying to survive through a defensive bombardment. The chaos is palpable, Jay Howe, and these 3 teams, none of them are operating as a full squad. Now with 2 of them left, Play are the ones under fire. They end up trying to find the res here. It is a risky time to be up, but Aitin goes down just in time, and Play clutch the win.
Wow. That zone is ruthless. I mean, there is no hiding from anybody or anyone, and Play comes out on top. I mean, that they had to battle so hard there. I got to be careful of the words that I use, because what they did was they went through it all. The gauntlet was there in front of them. You do not come out of there unscathed. They had 1 member knocked, and everybody else around them had 1 or 2 members knocked, and they ended up being the team to have the best survival. So to win that zone is a testament to gun game, a little bit of luck, but a lot of gun skill comes in difficult circumstances.
It was really down to the wire there, as Aiton was finding the shots with the wingman as well. You could see him popping, and I was like, hold on, is he about to do this? It was razor thin, that margin that Play ended up winning it by. And hey, it's a good thing for them as well, as they end up taking a win in our 3rd game of the day. And now halfway through the day, we're going to take a short break and find out who is making up our top 10 right now, and who has the best shot at taking that top spot and moving themselves to the pro leagues. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gents. We have cleared the halfway point of the day. 6 games will determine which team ends up getting into Pro League. And of course, 3 games in, we've got a pretty good idea of who our best contenders are. Last game was pretty crazy, J-How. Let's take a look as Play obviously coming out on top. 21 points in the game is a pretty nice thing to throw them into contention.
I mean, after 3 games, we had a pretty good idea. We're like, oh, look at these top 7 teams. It seems like all the other teams that were on the other end of the spectrum said, hold on a second, maybe we should get involved in this. I mean, you look at the top 4 teams, they were nowhere near for quite some time. So to see them come back, put up this many points, great start. The only top team that we see kind of on the fringes there, Clean with 9 points, Top Dogs with 9 points. So some of our teams still staying within contention that game. But it's kind of the underdogs, if you will, through the first 3 games now coming out, or for the first few games now coming out here in game number 3.
Now, they got to keep that momentum going if they want to usurp one of these top spots, because you see Top Dogs and Clean still have themselves that number 1 and number 2 position. You can see these other teams starting to bring up the rear, though, as Play now in 9th, Chichivicha in 10th, make us a little bit more top-heavy like you were talking about earlier, but there is still a long way left to go, and they're not the only ones. Figvam, from their Game 1 victory, has fallen all the way to 4th and might continue to fall if they can't replicate their performance soon.
Yeah, Figvam, a team that hadn't performed very well, as we noted earlier in week number 1, were 20th. We're absent in week number 2 and then come out hot in game number 1 here in week number 3. So we've got to find more of that consistent nature that we'd like to see. I'm still surprised at what happened with major pushers in game number 1. We got to remember, this is a team that everybody expects to be an ALGS, but they missed week number 1. So they have some catching up to do. It's not out of the question they just kind of roll throughout the rest of today or show up next week and they're in. But for them to take that big of a risk so early last game, I think was surprising to me. I understand the mentality of you had a little bit of time and you might as well fight while you're there because nobody else is really going to threaten you. But they committed so much to it that eventually those teams did come in. And once they got the stick and the knocks, they ended up suffering. It was not a clean wipe. They lost 2 members. And when you lose 2 members in that, it's easy to be third-partied, and that's what happened. So whether it was just the execution was a little bit off, whether they took too much time, I don't know if we'll see the same level of aggression that early, but I still was surprised to see that given their standing right now.
Yeah, and I'd be even more surprised if it continues, because very clearly Eternal are not going to be pushed around. I think you take a lot of other teams that major pushers will actually actively feel confident into, and you put them in that position, and the wipe is a lot cleaner. But Eternal already demonstrated that they've got the shot calling necessary to win an entire game and realistically perform at the top for a long time. They're another returning team here that unfortunately didn't make it in the second week, but in the first week had a really great performance as well. So the fact is that Eternal aren't going to be pushed around, and nor are a lot of these teams. You and I were talking about how this is honestly some of the most competitive preseason qualifier matches that we've had so far, and it's because we've got all of these returning members that really have a lot of experience in this sort of meta behind them.
Experience is a big thing in Apex, and it's no surprise when you look at the leaderboard throughout three games that the more experienced teams are generally up there. That's just the nature of the way the game works. So when you have that experience in there, you can see Top Dogs, Clean, Dead Inside, Eternal, major pushers. 5 of our top 7 teams, they're here almost week in and week out. And for those other teams, they're kind of always in the mix. A lot of these teams are competing, but when you see Top Dogs, Clean, and Dead Inside as your top 3, nobody's going to be like, oh, that's surprising. You're like, that's exactly what we thought coming into today. So when you pointed it out, I think you probably had the best observation in that last game, was when they were trying to push that, a crypto drone came down. Yes, they did kill the drone, so therefore it said, hey, you know what? Like, they don't have EMP, so now they're going to take the risk. But when you're pushing a team with the experience, the prowess of Eternal, you're generally a little more hesitant. It's like pushing one of the top teams and saying, oh, we're just going to ego flex this and come out and win a 3v3. While they did win the 3v3, it was not easy, and we saw the final results. Maybe in a different scenario that works, but you have to be able to read these situations. And I think that moment when you called that out, you're like, well, maybe we shouldn't push this team. We know who's up there. Not only that, but we're taking the more difficult of the push. I don't want to break it down too much because we know what they're capable of, but things like that, I think speak to the experience of what we were talking about with all these other teams, and so they know how to dial it back and regroup from that last game.
Exactly, and it's about adapting, because there's no way that you can necessarily have perfect information all the time, but when you do get an information, how do you play with it? It's a lot like when we see Lobas start to come down, how do teams react to that? Do they sit there? Do they go on a push? Like how do they prioritize who they should focus?
What they do, Dia?
Yeah.
They say, why is there a Loba in the game?
Yeah, that's true. Where are all these nades coming from? There's question mark things everywhere. But now that we're getting into our fourth game, we will start to see these be more... There be more storytelling behind these points, because as the number of games left start to decrease, each point comes at a premium. The risks that you might be willing to take in the first half might not necessarily pay off, although I'm still waiting for some teams to really start taking a few more. I think Red Dragon and Odin, finding themselves not in the top 10 right now, are two teams that certainly have the experience to get there, have been to the preseason qualifier finals multiple times now, and Odin almost finding the win last game, might be able to break in before the day's out.
Yeah, Odin is not a team that we're unfamiliar with either, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see them spring up. And you mentioned Red Dragons. They had a really good position. Nemesis was the one with that raw push. Yeah, Odin is not a team that we're unfamiliar with either, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see them spring up. And you mentioned Red Dragons. They had a really good position. Nemesis was the one with that raw push with zero information, zero cracks, zero damage, and that ended up going really bad for them. Red Dragons ended up getting, I think, only one of that KP. They managed to regroup, and then they got out, and then there was some weird miscommunication between those teams. The fact that they were able to reestablish themselves was great, but it was the rotation that they moved forward. They got a crack there. It was like south of Frag. They're on that cliff wall. They got a crack. They couldn't do anything with it, but then they left themselves exposed. That's the risk of coming down from that choke. They were going to have to come down from that choke no matter what, because it wasn't going to be into zone. But the position that they moved themselves into, it left their backs exposed, I believe, to dead inside. There was a team even coming over from Dorito. Positioning is really important. Had they moved further north, there's a couple of spots where there's a rock on one side, there's a bit of a hole or a crevice there that they can move in, and now you have head peaks on both sides. They got the crack. They didn't know what to do with it. I think communication issues like that are what we talk about when we talk about experience. It's like, how do you deal with these situations? These situations, when you're not as familiar with them, can catch you off guard. And one minor error can be the difference between getting a top 10 or a top 5 finish versus getting exposed and just getting, shot in the back by dead inside. Those are the types of things that you have to shore up. So Red Dragons had a great spot. They did okay with it. They kind of let their guard down, and it cost them. Those are things to learn from. Yeah,
especially because I think that nobody would question, and you talked about PKMK earlier, being a very mechanically talented player. All these guys can back themselves up in that way, at the very least. You leave them alone in a 1v1, 1v2, you can count on them to win it. But when it comes to coordinating exactly where they need to be and when, you can still see that the pieces are coming together. And hey, maybe they come together in these last couple of games, as we've got a lot of other teams that also are still looking for their time to shine. We've talked about Phoenix Legacy a lot today. Really big story in the semis, had a really rough third game, and that's got to be the thing that kicks them into high gear going into this fourth one. We've had 2 central zones now. I'd say we're unlikely to get one again, as my gambler's fallacy comes through, but maybe if we move away from there, they'll have a little bit better of a time.
I think we would probably all kind of like to move away, get a little bit different view. But you mentioned them. They were the first team out, I believe, last game. They come down from Skyhook, took that zip across to the vertical zip building there at the northwest part of Frag West. I don't really know what happened. There was a lot of action that we saw in Frag East. We just happened to witness it in the kill feed. But that's another situation where it probably was fairly isolated. So they either didn't want to hold the building, got caught in rotation, or they just lost their 3v3. Those can be pretty detrimental to your odds going forward when you're the first team out. So I do agree with you that these are the teams that we don't create their expectations. They create their expectations by doing really well in other games or in the semifinals. So we look at these teams as the teams we look up to. It's like somebody comes out and scores 30 one night in basketball. They come out and score 2 the next night. You're like, was that a fluke or did something bad happen? Did they get sick? Did they, something like that? Not necessarily like that in esports with with Apex, but you got to wonder, like, where do you start to average out your games? And we're still waiting for them to have that big game.
Yeah, and it is their first appearance in a finals so far, or at least in the preseason qualifiers, and that's the thing that is giving me a little bit more wiggle room here, because I think we've seen the story a lot of teams that end up topping. I think Top Dogs, they alone had that last week where they were #1. They won multiple games in their own semifinals just last week, and they ended up leaving with 29 points outside of top 10. They didn't really push in, make a big splash in the finals, but here already you can see how they've recovered with that knowledge of what it's like, with the extra week of experience and practice, knowing that now that week is behind us, we're going to learn from that experience and be able to move forward to compete in those preseason qualifiers one more time. Is now, speaking of one more time, we got one more game at J-How. We got plenty more than one more game, but we're moving into our 4th of the day, 4 out of 6, and we're finally about to start dropping.
Yeah, when we talk about Top Dogs and those teams, I think the cool part is, for the teams that have been here now throughout 3 weeks, and it's only a couple, I believe, but even the teams that are here for 2 weeks, some of these teams are technically going to start qualifying much sooner than later. It's going to take far less effort in week number 4 compared to some of these other teams that aren't here. A team that you mentioned, this is their first time in the finals. They might have gotten other points in the semis, but it's here where you pick up, if you do the semis and the finals, you're picking up a decent amount of points. So I definitely think that for some of these teams, this kind of is their big week, that even if they don't win this week, they can still cement their spot in the ALGS. I don't want to speak definitively on this because the point system is pretty complex, and keeping track of it is hard when you have so many teams competing. But I think for some of these teams, they are looking at this as a week to potentially qualify, or at least make it so next week is extremely easy for them.
Yeah, and I gotta say that, you know, in the third game, the one that we just finished as well, the fact that Play and Crazy 3 were both in the top 3, had a really good chance of winning it, speaks volumes as well, because it is their first time here, and being able to adapt that quickly is tough. But now we're finally going to get the chance to see whether we get a different zone, J-How, because we got 2 frag ones in a row, and I'm sure that if we get another frag one, these teams will be thankful for the practice now that they've had 2 games to sort of figure it out. But I want to see something a little bit different. Maybe if we can get another southern zone or something.
If we get a frag zone, I'm blaming it on you because you jinxed it before the game started.
That's true.
So I just want you to know that if it's frag, this is your fault. And if it's not frag, it's just the way the game is, and you don't get credit for it, all right?
All right, I understand. I've made the classic caster mistake of speaking.
There we go.
There we go. There's nothing to do with me. We made it. Geyser, it's empty. It's still empty.
You know, I selfishly want to see this pull over to Big Mod. There were some Big Mod endings this weekend that I know you watched, and I know I got to see as well. I love Big Mod in competitive. It's pretty fun and ranked and pub play, but Big Mod is big, okay? It's massive, and I want to see how many teams we can stack in there. It seems like it might pull towards Geyser. We'll find out. But selfishly, I wouldn't mind if it wanted to pull down there. Either way, I think we're both happy that get a little bit different perspective here.
We're getting a little bit of a different start as well, as Odin has dropped somewhere else, not wanting to contest major pushers, find themselves in the face of not Red Dragons, but a different team entirely. This is going to be DaBaby also dropping over here, as I have misplaced our spot, and we're over here by Climatizer, which makes a lot more sense. DaBaby gonna end up finding themselves the single kill right now, as Odin end up losing 2. Still, Vic with the purple shields could clutch this one out. It's got the Mastiff working for him as well. Gonna end up dropping the gas, and then maybe the res, but instead goes right back in with the shotgun, finding a knock, evening us up. What? And now it's gonna be able to punish the knock as well. This is gonna be the last couple shotgun shots here. Needs to reload, play this one slow, but you have got this in the bag, Vic. He's gonna come around the corner with the Mastiff right now, and oh lord, doesn't even find the knock there either. The grenade might spell his end, but finally Odin managed to take the fight up north.
Vic just clutched up in a massive way, and something went wrong there with DaBaby, because you saw Valkyrie solo push and that didn't go well. And then that left a 1v1. That's normally not how you want to take a 2v1 situation, is to create different 1v1 scenarios. Not only that, I think there was a punch that went through there at the end that didn't quite hit anything but air. And so Vic with a major clutch when their team was definitely at a deficit to start that.
Speaking of major pushers are rotating over as well, and they're moving into Geyser. They're the team that would normally have been fighting against Odin, since Odin has really liked to drop Harvester near them, but they've decided to give that one up for now to give themselves a better shot at winning the game. They end up picking up a few KP. We'll see if they can translate that as major pushers. Now they need some early KP to get themselves going as well, get their usual start as Nemesis. They're on the receiving end of some hurt as well. Not from major pushers, but from a different team entirely, as that's going to be Flying Camels that contested them, unfortunately, to their demise.
A lot of early action this game compared to our others. Already 3 teams out. Major pushers will clean up theirs. That's, I believe, Eternal.
Yeah.
That's out now. So for Eternal to be out, major pushers and Eternal, they met last game under very different circumstances. Major pushers got the best of them. They fell immediately after. This time, they will stand. And they will now get some early KP and some pretty prime positioning as well.
They did it really fast. Big difference between last game and this game. But, I mean, we got to start asking ourselves, what's going on here? Because these guys are at each other's throats. And I know that Eternal likes to land near them, but it has been some really crazy aggression as major pushers continue with that trend, moving themselves swiftly inside of Geyser and maybe even looking for another fight. They just want to stomp a lobby right now, and you can feel it.
I mean, the movement that they have is very aggressive. I think they identified there was a team on that southern strand. Meanwhile, Dead Inside, they were the ones up on top. I think this is why they bubbled, to make sure they didn't get shot crossing here into Geyser. So sitting with a longbow, Kazakh boy says, how do I get up there?
He wishes, right? You wish a Valkyrie could hold your hand and pull you up here. Still going to have some pretty good shots onto the building that major pushers formerly inhabited. We'll see who's up there now is sort of the principle, the hermit crab principle that I've heard tell of in Apex. When you leave your spot, someone else will come up to take that spot. You are now left without a home, and major pushers, at the very least, have found themselves a little bit more safety. As already Geyser previously empty, you can see has really started to crowd up.
Yeah, clean major pushers and Red Dragon hold the 3 prime spots, but when it comes to major pushers and Red Dragon, there is room for another team to take the other end of that strand. Meanwhile, clean, they hold what many consider to be the more dominant building because there is only room for one. It doesn't mean it's impenetrable because teams can move in there, especially when they need a place to go and there's no other where to go. Meanwhile, Dead Inside here on the southern side near Big Mod has a bit of contention of their own.
We saw them pushing over to this earlier. A nice crack comes through, but it's not going to be a knock with the limited munitions that Kazakh has. Instead, just a little bit of good old-fashioned gatekeeping off towards Big Mod here. Not going to be a necessary push too soon, as they will still be inside the next ring, but we're going to wait on data for the following one to really find out how much trouble these guys are going to be in. That Inside sort of playing the game that got played against them last time by teams like Red Dragon and Nemesis, this time being the ones to control that choke, and we'll see if they can convert that type of play into a win.
You know, Dia, I really want to see how this truck plays out in the long term for teams, and we know trucks can be pushed because you can just nade them out, but they're also hard to push because you're exposed to teams like this that would be watching you. But this choke, there normally used to be a building here and then the big L-shaped building. This is an entirely different game now in this area. How much has changed has been drastic. I really want to see long-term competitively how this holds out, but Dead Inside is going to give us our first look of how a team can hold this, and I'm really curious to see what they can do with it.
Seems like for right now, they're certainly finding purchase with those longbow shots. Kazakh, very, very comfortable up here, has the door for protection as well. Has already been really farming up the damage. Could swap to the blue if he wanted to be a good guy, but instead, maybe looking for his own red. As Nemesis, interestingly enough, didn't know that they were they were the team down here until just recently. It's funny that this has been turned around on them, as they were the ones gatekeeping Dead Inside last time, and now how the turntables, Jay, how?
I like the turn of words there too, my friend. But this is what we typically expect from a Geyser zone, because the early fighting, I think, is atypical. We actually had some really surprising early fights in some different areas, and major pushers finding Eternal in rotation was probably the biggest, but the team's making it into Geyser. things tend to slow down. And when you don't have a place to go, you'll inevitably be a team like Fig, where you'll just control the choke going into Geyser. Dominant position, to say the least, are all of the areas that you're going to find, whether it's within or right around the perimeter. And you don't have to move if you are these teams, and your fights are generally fairly isolated, which is why teams struggle to try and push into you.
I'm actually a really big fan of where FigVam are right now, because that specific choke with this zone, it has a lot of endings quite near it. We're gonna have to put a hold on that, though. On the zone talk, as Phoenix Legacy find themselves in another fight, and they gotta come out on top of this one. They've gotta have the show in now. They've already found a knock, and it seems like they're converting this just fine, as somehow, some way, Phoenix Legacy, they are back in it.
They need to get any type of momentum that they can. I mean, when you talk about just getting a team wipe, I mean, just seeing that happen after the rough start that you've had is enough to create that momentum and kind of get you in the zone, if you will. You seem to be under assault to a minor extent. So, yeah, the portal in the doorway is always really frustrating. So they had to kind of portal through, give themselves an opportunity to get out.
It's giving them a little bit more room to play with as well. As a creative spot is found by Arthur to keep this door safe for right now. Fighting war on multiple fronts, though. Phoenix Legacy can't commit too many resources to holding down one side. Portal's going to expire soon. That'll open up their backsides at the same time. We'll see how they end up reacting to that. As for right now, seems like everybody's backed away, not wanting to fight with the team that just ended up finding the wipe. As it looks like Top Dogs, they're fighting them by themselves over there, over with Dead Inside, again, at each other's throats. And it seems like Top Dogs, they're the ones that come out on top.
Top Dogs ended up suffering a knock there at the end. We'll see if a third party had got involved. But when the top teams are fighting, the rest of the teams around them are thanking them. They're like, thank you for getting this out of the way. And it's Nemesis, I believe, that got involved there, as we see another member of Top Dogs go down.
It's literally thanking them, because Nemesis was sitting there under fire from Kaza, and all of a sudden Top Dogs come in and they go, we've eliminated the threat. Please enjoy your third party. It seems like right now they're hanging on, but holy lord, the Fry coming in from Plusha takes down Xander and Big Bam. They are in trouble now. Dome Res going to come through as a really nice defensive bombardment, buys them some space. Will this reset actually happen in time, though? Is the question that Fig Bam are asking themselves. Is finally, it seems like Xander's going to be able to get that Phoenix kit off in a little bit of a crevice in the rock, and they continue to hold on to this high ground that we've sort of come full circle. I really like.
Here's Nemesis, the team that did get the knock. I couldn't quite tell if they got the thirst there. I believe they might have on at least one member. Trying to keep track here on a couple of different fronts. Meanwhile, Nemesis, they're going to retreat back to the southern end of this. I mean, you got to imagine there's nobody to the south of them coming in from this direction.
No, they've got plenty of room right now. Anybody who would have been moving up already has, and Nemesis know that their backs are safe in a really sort of weird way. It lets them surround the building and push Top Dogs back in, as this next round closing will reveal to us the next place that Nemesis are going to have to move. Seems like they're going to be likely unseated from their current safety position here, as I don't pretend to know what's going on here. A disconnect.
Somebody went for a water break. Oh, yeah. That is disconnect. We now see the disconnect there. So punching them just so they can get into zone. We'll hope that Clone gets back. We'll keep an eye on that as time goes on. Meanwhile, a res just happened here, so they're going to try and get some shots on whoever's going to cross through. They're going to hide behind here momentarily, but down a member. I'm sure they would love to be pushing this with 3 members. They'll have to do it a little more cautiously here with just 2.
With the wall hacks, at the very least, they've got some nice room given to them. Holding out here around Big Mod, they might be able to find a kill, even though Clone cannot participate. Be very happy to come back to that one. Nemesis continuing to lay down the hurt, have yet to find a knock, though, with the Gibraltar Dome buying some safety. This might actually be the clean escape for the team that just found that res. My question is, who on earth was it? And Clone comes back to go, hey, guys, what was happening?
It was one of our Loba teams, which that could have been Top Dogs, because they were down a member in this general vicinity. So that might have been them. We'll be able to check in later. But But I want to talk about the zone for a minute, because this is trending towards the southern side of Geyser. And if this pulls towards that corner on the east side, chaos in those. There's one team that can really hold dominant position. It still has potential to kind of come over here. We've seen some zones kind of in this box area where we just saw them. Meanwhile, Priest, one of our teams, kind of holding high ground in between this choke with the longbow. They'll have sight lines on a lot of teams should a fight break out. But still a lot to be determined, as we're 50 seconds away from Zone 3 closing, or Round 3 ending. Zone 4 kind of showing itself.
You can see Oracle showing up in the kill feed as well, unfortunately on the wrong side of it. And just to bring attention, or rather complete that story, they're also a team that runs the Loba, so likely them that were taken out, trying to find their way to a little bit more safety. As up here, 4 is really able to run the lobby with the longbow, at least for the next 2 clips or so, as he's still got plenty of damage farming to do, but not an instant weapon to swap to after this is out. The longbow very quickly going to become less of a great option as the zone carries everybody closer together. And you can see the action that is about to break out here, 10 seconds away from that third round starting to close, and Geyser real estate is really becoming heavily prized.
It's AAS, the team that I was talking about in that corner. You see them at the top of the screen. That corner, if it does pull there, perfect positioning.
What is going on? That is
somebody is running in here on the middle right of our screen. That is a dangerous strand. Is that a Horizon ult?
It's hard to tell. It is not a Horizon ult. It is just a lot of hurt right now for the team that unfortunately
it's a Horizon ult.
Pushed a little bit too quickly. Red Dragon ended up making short work of Dungeon Masters, who I suppose had to Valkyrie to get inside of the ring, but it is not a great look for them.
Yeah, they're running a Horizon now, Red Dragon. So I could see blue, and I'm like, is that a bubble? But then I'm like, we're third person, so it should be orange. So I was like, that's got to be a Horizon ult. I don't think I caught that on the load-in.
Yeah, I didn't see it either, but they've taken another departure from the meta. And hey, Red Dragons, if they want to play high octane, Horizon can do that pretty darn well. Seems like, looking back over at Nemesis, they've lost Clone once again in an unfortunate turn of events. Going to be operating at a deficit. Looking over at the upper end, though, we can see Pew Pew raining down shots as Fig Bam still also have a great position. Is this a banner recovery moment? What is this?
I don't know if they can get in there. I can tell you one thing, Clean just punished major pushers for going after a kill. They left themselves exposed and out in the open. And surprise, surprise, all those teams in Geyser now have to make their way over.
Lord.
Big Mod is not in. There is one building and a team just flew into it. Everybody else is going to have to come through this choke. There's time right now maybe to play in the boxes, the carts there where we saw the duo there. They can hold one of those. Another team can join them, but there is going to be a lot of fighting here to get into this POI. And I can tell you, we are going to see 12 drop very drastically and some desperation Valkyrie ults very soon.
We really are. And actually, the guts to even pull the trigger on that early rotation were really surprising. You talked about how the team flies into the truck. It ends up netting them one of the better positions right now, but the chances that was already taken were so high that I'm surprised that anybody wanted to do it. Looks like it's Play that actually end up putting themselves inside of the truck. We'll see how that works out for them as Top Dogs want to make their way inside as well, sitting right on the outside right now. And Nemesis, they arguably have one of the safest positions.
I mean, we're about to see violence. Lots and lots of violence coming from the Geyser side. These teams over here already contesting each other, looking for that. There's one Valkyrie ult. Don't be surprised if you see another. Remember Priest, the team that was up on top, that was with the longbow? They're going to be in the sights of all the teams trying to rotate through. Will they be able to deal with the pressure? How many teams are flying over? Nemesis, surprisingly, with only 2 members, they're still going to maintain this back area. They will let a team in on that other side in that cart. But now, with the zone at their back, Nemesis still in a decent position. but my goodness, teams are dropping right now.
Look at the bloodbath in the kill feed as well. Clean end up losing a member. So many teams have let good men fall, as it looks like we've completely closed in and only dropped down to 8 squads. We lose 4 in the process of moving ourselves into this next ring, and a minute 15 seconds until the next one does not tell a lot of great stories for these guys, as it looks like Red Dragons finally end up going down in the unluckiest of ways right at the end. Nemesis still alive though, with the ring at their backs, have somehow managed to take the 2-man and convert it into what is looking like it might be a great game.
They're trying to snipe KP away. That's exactly what they need to do. So using the Wraith, using the utility for that reason right there. Meanwhile, Clean also picked up some kills in the kill feed. They are not a full squad, but they are there. Priest positioning up on that high ground has led them now to a top 6 finish and at least 5 KP from what we can tell. So positioning worked out very well for them to control the choke. For the other teams that had to move thither, we now see at least 7 KP. Priest, Play, the team that's in the truck, they were the ones facing top dogs. The teams that are now starting to come back are doing so in emphatic fashion.
Now, there is a Skyward Dive available here for Priests if they don't want to try and fight through the choke, but it is risky. Portal might be up as well, but it is all a game of cooldowns for them, as the choke is something that you want to avoid at all costs. Top Dog, speaking of all costs, they got all the money in the world over here. Look at all of these meds that they can play with, and the head peaks as well. They're just trying to shell them out. The one team inside of here. These nades are looking like they'll do the job.
Oh, that thermite just missed, but this is very reminiscent to our previous game where they used the lobe ult to load up on nades and start shelling teams out. They were unsuccessful. That's Play in the middle. Meanwhile, Nemesis, they're nearby. You can see Ranches there from Major Pushers, a rat down in the middle. So teams are trying to survive enough to get placement points, and here they go. Top Dogs with 1 knock. They're moving forward, trying to get an armor swap. They'll do just that. Flush them out. They're going to hold, but now they're going to get pushed here, Tia.
Priests are coming in for this one, and Top Dogs don't have the shields to work with it. They are the ones that went on the aggressive push, and they are the ones that will be punished for it, as the Priests ends up knocking them out almost entirely 0-0, holding out on top of the truck right now. Pops a few meds, but even more carnage starts to surround this truck, as on top 0-0 finally ends up getting knocked out by Xander, and 3 squads remain, not all complete, as carnage breaks out across the truck. Fig have somehow moved their way in here, and from choke to choke, they are running this lobby.
Well, they're trying to make it 2 wins today. They had a great game number 1, fell off, but now they're trying to make it a 2nd victory today. Got a lot of armor swaps here in the truck, only 1 team remaining. Valkyrie on top. Xander's gonna climb up with this Mastiff, and it's gonna be Fig Vam with the support of others, who's going to get their 2nd win of the day.
I love that you say that, because with the support of others is right. How many bodies, squads, individual members did we see full sending themselves into that truck in a desperation attempt to pick up some last KP? I counted at least 5.
All of them.
Yeah.
Literally every team was like, Top Dogs open the door, and it went from like a tiny little door to the floodgates opened. And it was full zombie mode. 1 team after another after another. Normally you see a little more patience, but everybody's like, well, I see they killed him in the kill feed. They can't be that great. We know that I think there was 6 teams and 15 people left. So there was at least 1 rat or a couple of duos. So they're probably reading the numbers like, maybe this is our best shot. And the rats, the duo squad of like Nemesis and Major Pushers, they're like, this is our chance to steal some KP away. And when you see those numbers drop so drastically in the teams left, send it. Let's go.
Yeah.
Fireworks for everybody.
There's no better chance, and I think it's interesting that we see this game sort of replicate itself. We saw that last time in the Fragment zone, and we get to see sort of a similar style this time around. It seems like Fig Fam ended up coming out on top this time, but these chaotic end zones are favoring the newer teams, and I want to see if that's changed up the standings any bit, as we're going to take a short break, do the math, and then we'll come back. Welcome back, guys. As we just finished our 4th game of the day, we're about to move into our 5th. Jayhow, I get to use my favorite word now. We are moving into the penultimate game of the day. And before we do, I want to take a look at the points going into this one. Big Vam found their second win, but they didn't get top spot.
Priest, I mean, you want to talk about gatekeepers?
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had that much KP. I mean, they put themselves on the high ground in the choke between Geyser and Big Mod, and apparently they did some farming. I didn't realize just how much farming they did. My goodness.
That is a lot of points collected just off the kills load, especially given that, what is that, so 16 points, math. They didn't place that high. They ended up getting, I think it was in 3rd or 4th this round, and while that's good, it's not enough to push them into a top spot. Top dogs at Fig, Vam, and Clean, they still run those.
Yeah, top dogs, and I think we have to go back to that res that happened over by Lava City. I believe that would have had to have been top dogs. They managed to regroup and then pick up some valuable KP in that corner. We saw them go pretty hard on that truck. It ended up being their demise, but they picked up KP on the way in. They continue to find ways to manufacture points. Now, it's not a major cushion here. Still a lot of teams with 2 games left that can make up that gap. But now, definitely sit as one of the top dogs in the lobby.
Nice, nicely done. Speaking of course, I am really happy that we ended up seeing the value of the Loba there. I think that the respawn that you talked about is sort of the perfect time for her to show exactly how much work she can do, because they weren't really operating at a deficit near the end. We got to take a look at the champion select this time though, because Flying Camels, that's drawing my eye.
What number am I looking at? There we go.
19,
oh, that's
19.
a Revenant.
Yeah.
A Rev Octane. I'm like starting at the top, looking at Red Dragon, making sure that they're going Horizon again. I'm playing like word find, picture find over here. That's a Rev Octane. The reason why you don't see Rev Octane in finals lobbies and hard lobbies is because most teams will be moving into zone early. And the best time you can find Rev Octane pushes is on the edge of zone or isolated fights. Because so many teams move in so early, it's so hard to find. I don't know, like they might get some early KP and that might be what they're looking for. But if they make it late game, that comp does a lot of, dare I say, not a lot, okay? Just not a lot. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it can very quickly get punished, and I think that right now Flying Camels, they've sort of been punished along the way for not being able to find their way into zones at the right time, and so now trying to turn that around by putting the shoe on the other foot and saying, hey, we're going to be the ones that punish you, we're going to be the ones that make these aggressive pushes and put you in bad spots, is a really interesting turn of strategies. We're going to get a turn of the game, Jayhow. The zone is revealed, and it is a entirely different one.
Well, I tell you, I was so laser focused on who was landing at Climatizer, and it looks like DeBaby and them are fighting that I didn't even look at the zone. I was so focused on, are they going to fight right off the jump? But I can kind of see.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. I was laser focused on Climatizer and Survey and whether we were going to have a team maybe go over there in third party early. I mean, I was in there, man.
We very well might. I think that your observations will pay off. For right now, that's our focus, but as we get later into the game, things will start to draw themselves a little further south. Lava Siphon is where we're going to be playing, and interestingly enough, it is where the Red Dragons drop, maybe giving them a little bit of home court advantage, much needed after the events of the day.
For Flying Camels, coming out of Big Mod with the juiced up guns is always a major boon. So they're going to play to their strengths. You got to imagine, like, they want to get going early, and I mean real early, because with a Lava Siphon, maybe Harvester pull, teams will go there to try and claim those spots very, very early, meaning that you're not going to be able to push those teams. So I want to see them get on the good foot here pretty quick.
You know, already 15 or so seconds until the expected rotation should come in. DeBaby, though, fighting early. This is exactly what you called out. Definitely playing as expected, as Odin seemed to be once again taking this fight and actually coming out on top again. So the 50-50s really working for them now. They're working as 3.
Odin Gamers, I mean, I don't know how many times you take this fight as the baby. I mean, you're always going to get a 50-50. You're always going to get the isolated fights, but I mean, how hard do you commit each of the times? You know, we also saw on one of our teams in survey camp, if they start hearing this game in and game out, do they try and come over here for an early third party? That hasn't been the MO so far, but it's certainly a possibility going into future games.
You know, we had this stack up in week 1 over in NA as well. When you are able to drop and consistently win your 50-50, it changes the game, not just for you, but for the teams at the top as well, because 3 guaranteed points for 3 games in a row, that actually ends up stacking up to a decent amount of placement at the same time, and you got to be worried as the teams that are right ahead of them in placement as to whether a little bit more is going over than necessary. Clean right now, trying to find some KP as well, are trying to make themselves push up on this early rotation, but it's proving a little bit more difficult than they had first expected.
I don't think they're willing to relent too hard, but they certainly have been valuing. We saw them fight rather early on the northern zones last week. This week, we did see the early fights in Frag, but that was kind of forced upon them. Other than that, they've really been prioritizing zone today more than I think what we saw previously. So it's no surprise that they're willing to commit to that Val cult just to get into positioning, knowing that Lava Siphon is going to be very busy very quickly.
Yeah, and if we can sort of draw parallels between them and TSM, they're likely to take one of the buildings up north. They don't tend to go for these sort of really big buildings, instead opting for the smaller ones, as Eternal opting for a little bit of small cover themselves, almost end up going down. Seems like they're going to be okay for now. Phoenix Legacy pushing in, as we know from survey, seem to have found themselves some prey right now. Get that crack, and are going to get the knock as well, as Liffin goes wild with the G7.
That heated up real quick. So Phoenix Legacy getting some early KP and some much needed KP. As a reminder, this is not a 1 week thing where all things matter this week. This is a cumulative thing. So for Phoenix Legacy, you know, the likelihood of them winning right now this week, probably not extremely high, but playing this week, playing into next week, they need those points to add up.
And FigVam, in this case specifically, aren't going to get those points adding up this game, as they're the ones that end up dropping members there and are not going to be able to place nearly as high this time around, especially if Phoenix Legacy are going to be on their tail like that. Oracle still hoping to have their breakout game as well. It's their second time attending the preseason qualifiers in this season, and they have yet to place supremely highly right now. Oracle has been, for the most part, sitting in the sort of bottom half around middle of the table, but if they can get their breakout game, maybe that changes things for them, especially if they can get themselves those points that, like you say, stack up towards the end of the preseason qualifiers, put them in the top 16 perhaps.
Looking at the kill feed, Xander is out.
That's going to be, let's see, that's FigVam finished off that.
That is FigVam, yeah.
Yep.
I believe that was their last member, so
it is.
They will be down and out. Meanwhile, just making sure this thing works.
Yeah, that Red Dragon, they do find themselves with some neighbors just downstairs, have ended up, what's that called, remodeling and then subletting their basement to somebody else, and it seems to be working out for them right now, as they're the ones really benefiting off of it, as oddly enough gets mirrored in real life as well. Red Dragon gonna be able to pop the dome right here to try and make the push off of those initial longbow shots work, as Arc Stars get fired in at them over and over. Nemesis are holding them at bay at the cost of almost all of their ordinances right now. And as another team comes in, Red Dragon are the ones that get to retreat up to this high ground and continue laying the pressure down.
Going across that cart, though, that can't be good for your health. I believe they went the direction of clean if they are still there. See if they can identify that, or whether they ride that cart all the way through. No matter what, I mean, getting through that is a big surprise. And now we get a look at the scan. This very well could pull even over towards Tree. Time will tell, but between Tree and Lava Siphon, those will be the hot spots. But the one team that I think you always want to keep an eye on is kind of where near major pushers is, around that train track area and the carts up there. That tends to be uncontested a lot, and can definitely be a point of, I guess, assault for a lot of teams, and it's Top Dogs, the team that actually holds the cart. So big spot for them, I think, right now.
Yeah, this is a really flexible one, although it does come with its own risks. Top Dogs, we'll see how they end up playing that one out, as it looks like play, speaking of, are going to be rev-tained on right now. See if they can survive as Dome ends up going down for them, and they're going to be able to get the resets. Blind Camel's going to need to take that pad once more if they want to find themselves this KP, get value out of it, but not having found a knock, they're going to actually stop the play right there. Leave themselves with really nothing at the end of that, except for a spot that is outside of zone currently.
Well, Revtain attempt number 1.
We'll get more.
You might get a second, and it will probably look about the same or maybe worse, because as more teams come in there, you don't just jump across for free. Not only that, but a team very well could just move into your building and say, man, we really hope you come back because we know you're going to be coming back hurting. We're going to sit right on top of it. It's just, I am surprised to see a Revtain team here. Clearly, what they've been doing wasn't working for them, so they're trying to mix things up.
Oh!
This is Weebs out in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, also a team that has been struggling on the lower half today. Seems like they're going to go out right now, as it is yet another cleanup from Phoenix Legacy, who have been rotating around and playing edge in a way that we'd expected a lot of other teams to be doing. Instead, getting that turned on its head and finding not one, but 2 squad wipes before the second ring even closes is really a huge turnaround for them. Clean finally moving their way out of the central lava siphon and into this building that attaches more out to the train tracks, give themselves a little bit more opening to be pushed on, while at the same time having a little bit more safety and control of the zone. We get to taste of that next one right now. It's going to pull a lot of teams a little bit further south, but Leafs Top Dogs still in a great spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was wondering where Clean was when we saw that cart go through. I think this is a much better place to strategize from. And as you said, that back outro or exit into the tunnels gives you that rotational value in case you get stuck somewhere. You don't feel like Valk ulting out. So I love this position from Clean. We did see a little bit more in the kill feed, but things are going to start to calm down now as things start to compact. Get compressed here. 16 squads, 46 players left, so 1 rat, 15 full teams.
And then for that 1 rat, I really do. It might be the team from up north that Phoenix Legacy was pushing that managed to escape, but there haven't been a whole lot of fights that weren't entirely cleaned up. Even Red Dragon, as we saw earlier, that were fighting against, I believe it was Nemesis. Yeah, ended up cleaning up Nemesis in the end there. And we see Phoenix Legacy, the predators of this lobby, now finally coming in. They're the only team that has been operating outside of zone so far, and it has benefited them. We might see them run into yet another squad, though, as you can see Alpha Draft leading up what is AAS. Might end up meeting them up north for some fireworks.
We just got to look at the next zone. There's been several zones that end here right in front of Clean, directly on their bottom right to the west of their current position. So they are in a position to hold this area without much threat behind them. We got to look at the minimap. They might not know all of that, but a team that you mentioned, Phoenix Legacy, a team that probably the only team that was out of the zone. They have at least 4 KP, potentially more, as they've been working towards the edge of zone. Now they're going to try and find a home as they move in as well.
And we take a look over here near launch site at the part that is still inside of the zone as well, as seems like Chichivicha has decided that this is their place to own. They got the caustic to hold up in this building, and there are also some zones that will end around here, pulling just a little bit north, giving Chichivicha some nice high ground if that gamble ends up paying off, and you can see it start to maybe pull their way right about now. We'll have to wait for that next zone read, as 4th ring will reveal itself and tell us a lot about where we're likely to end and who's likely to have God spot as well, because around 4th, 5th zone, it's when you can start to tell.
I really want to know who's going to take control, as we now have a very good look. It's going to be into Lava Siphon. Who is going to take control of where those boxes were? And now that we know the boxes aren't going to be in there, just to the left of Lava Siphon. 8 teams nearby, no surprise. 0 this direction somehow.
it's a little swingy. we got plenty going on here as maybe relocating during that time. Speaking of relocation, of course, you'd mentioned the Valkyrie ulting what we now know is going to be outside of the ring. So that team likely going to have to push up behind Chichivicha or through the teams that are holed up inside of Tree. Right now, Clean have a lot easier of a time as a drop goes off way off in the distance, and it is going to be Red Dragons finding themselves yet another kill, this time onto Eternal, the team that was so gracious as to give us the ring scan.
Eternal had such a good run at the start of the day. They've really fallen off the last few games. They were one of the first teams out last game. Now they're suffering, maybe not full defeat yet, but make no mistake about it, this is not the first 3 games that we saw, as we do now see an EMP on that building. With so many teams there, you got to imagine that's more of a defensive EMP to stop other teams from pushing, or at least give them hesitancy. We did see the ping on that truck. The truck is very difficult to hold this early in the game, but a team will inevitably make their way in there, and that can be a dominant spot to manufacture some kills from, some KP on, to hold some teams out. Meanwhile, we've got to look at Dead Inside. They're over here fighting just outside in Tree. They've already got one down.
They've got the cleanup on Oracle available to them, as well as the stick on the window is still going to be enough to find a really big zone. And with just one member left, Sanka has a lot of gas between him and the enemy team, but I don't think it'll save his teammates at the very least. Oracle gonna need to rat this one out, gonna need to survive, and gonna need to move into the ring as well. This fight taking a long time, could be real risky. There comes the Valkyrie over the top, but the Eva shots are actually finding purchase there, and Sanka's holding out on top. 1v3 right now.
I mean, I guess if there's one character that can really make that happen, it would be a Caustic.
Oh my god.
Hold on now.
Do this. Wait, an Oracle might actually be able to pull this out. If the gas is enough, you talked about the Caustic providing a lot of value.
Well, the zone is more problematic now. This is round 3. This will hurt.
Yeah, Sanka, you can only make it 100 meters inside of zone 3, so we might actually see him go down right now. Needs to slip and slide his way in, but it seems like he's going to end up going down. Oracle managed to take down a whole member of Dead Inside before going out themselves. It's a legacy, but it's not enough.
Yeah, we got to remember, there are no heat shields in competitive anymore, so those situations become dire. Meanwhile, I mean, Chichivicha
take out priests.
They took down priests, but it looks like they might be getting third-partied. Will try and Caustic barrel up, at least stop the push a little bit longer, and it looks like they've managed to at least survive a little longer. I'm trying to figure out if that's a rev queue that I see. That is a rev queue.
Yeah, so that's flying camels outside there who want to try and push in on this. Chichivicha don't have a whole lot of options to escape, but right now busting down the door will give them that, which is good, because they're going to need it in about 60 seconds to make their way into the next ring. Flying camels still a big fat 0 on the feed right now as they look to make that Revtain team work. It's been very difficult so far. Major pushers having a little bit of an easier time of it. Make a risky move to portal up into the open space, but they get themselves, the rewards are so glorious.
These 2 trucks are fantastic, and they've taken over one of them. Great move by major pushers. A little surprised this wasn't already taken, but it is hard to hold in the earlier zones. They've managed to now get this in zone 4, so a lot less teams can come in here. Meanwhile, Clean, they made their way back towards that central building, understanding the command center was no longer going to be in the next zone. So Clean, what's old is new again. They do have at least 1 KP, but haven't quite lit up the kill feed yet. But with so many teams left, a lot of opportunities.
And Dolph is getting it done, make no mistake, because VJX finally manages to find the kill. This might be the last member of Flying Camels that ends up going out on the low ground. You can hear Clean going to war on the top side right now, waging siege against this truck, as Dolph ends up going low. Doesn't have the dome either, so needs to burn the defensive bombardment. Still might end up going down on the jump up, but manages to, again, slip and slide his way to safety.
Desperation plays, but they pay off. They might have a team in their sight. That is not their gas, however. And only 1 member can move up on this, and they are going to move up aggressively. That's going to be a knock there from Dolphin. They're going to take out 1 member. They do move forward. Meanwhile, VJ still somehow surviving underneath. So the Rev team still within grasp.
So it's really come down to just Octane at this point, and seems like he's managed to find a lot of damage in the meantime, so definitely paying off for them. Dolph very nearly falls to ring there, has to be careful. His fourth ring hurts even more than the third. Intuitive, I know. And now they're going to have a lot of ground to cover here as well. Take a look at that ring. It is problematic for Clean because there's a lot of open space and a whole lot of lava between them and safety.
Yeah, you can play on the right or on the north side, if you will, along the wall around there, but you have to imagine there's going to be teams that will be there. We see one person just, I guess, essentially surviving down in the middle, but that top part that you see on the northern side, they can play underneath there. It's not easy because you see Odin. They will have a sight line. It's just really hard to get shots down in there. So there's a couple of weird crevices you can play. I don't know if that's going to be enough in the zone for them to wiggle around and get under there. That, or they have to go directly underneath Odin and for a late zip. Either way, they do have a couple of options to them in terms of how they get out of here. Let's see what they do, because they only have about 15 seconds. It's time to move.
Might be a little cart taking them to safety pretty soon. Clean are waiting on it though, and instead are going to choose to drop down onto the low ground, run this one in, and take some lava damage themselves in order to be able to find a safe place to use the Valkyrie. They're not going to be taken down out of the sky, but speaking of being taken down, Red Dragons continue to show up in the kill feed while we watch.
I don't know if they're going to try and make a roof play here or not. Where does Clean land?
Yep,
they
roof.
are going to the roof there. They're going to instantly be in a fight. They do force one member off.
They're winning.
Rampage comes out. Gun comes out. Unlucky goes in. See if they can get a knock here. And they do get a knock. There's going to be knock number one. Trying to get the thirst for an armor swap here. We'll get that in play. So Clean has managed to make their way in, take a member out, and now have a prime position going into this last zone. They will be exposed, though, when they have to crest over this when this zone is completely closed.
I am sure that Dead Inside feel just that right now. Is being landed on after they got that spot would feel terrible, but Clean are the ones that managed to pull it off, whip that away from them, and now have one of the best spots in this zone. But Major Pushers, make no mistake, they I think, have the very best one.
Yeah, it could be very similar to what we saw last game, where you just have everybody go in and try and take that truck. A little less likely, as you can see, there's different areas for these teams to play in. Meanwhile, Clean and team, despite them landing on top, they do end up going to play on the low ground. Will have a little bit of company. They know that if you do move forward, the lava is directly beside them. So if they take a left out of here, that is nothing but lava. So they have very few places they can go right now.
I think they have to take a left out of here, and that's the scariest part, especially with the Bloodhound spotting them out. Clean are not going to be just let up here, and instead are going to receive an Arc Star to the face. Nots tries to take the zip, but that is not working out today. And the res is going to come in just barely in time. GG and Each are the ones laying down fire on them from afar. End up tagging themselves a little bit. Red Dragon have a Kraber and continue to clean up in the kill feed. Red Dragon, this has been their game in a lot of ways.
This is a big comeback story for them. Clean. They've managed to move into a somewhat safe spot, let the teams fight around you, get some cover of your own. So now they're sitting just on the second floor. Now they'll move up. Targets a huge beam here. That is some crazy aim. And now they're going to move in, try and get more of this KP. They need to make sure and do this clean, though. Dolphin is the first one down. Zone closing in momentarily. Eva shots come out. Unlucky. Trying to dodge the defensive bombardment. Will take to the skies. Will survive long enough, but now with barely any shields in, and Eva, it's up to Unlucky, but Unlucky goes down. Chichibicha, now we see they took some damage coming in, down to one member left for them. 5 squads, though, down to 4.
Similar spot right now. Shield bat going to be enough for right now, as it's just a patience game about finding the perfect time to come back up. Ranches ends up finding the last knock up top as Red Dragons get themselves some as well. Major Pushers and Red Dragon, it is a fight between these two big name squads that bring us to the last couple. Like you say, 4 left, but this Kraber can make it 3.
They've already done a lot with the Kraber. They do have the Horizon. We don't know if the ult is available. looking to land somewhere behind a head.
Oh.
Pete Kraber, hipfire doesn't land. Now they're going to be in the target. PK's going to go down. That's Major Pushers trying to make their way up the ladder here. They're going to move forward. Red Dragon trying to take the high ground. Here comes the massive shots. That's going to hit down behind the knock shield. That's going to be the thirst. Down to 3 teams left. Red Dragon down to a duo. It's Major Pushers, the team that is on the assault. Down they go. And it's up to Rubik, who's going to try and defend here. And Red Dragons comes out as the champions here in game number 5.
We talked up their micro skill, their ability to scrap it out when nobody else would, and in the end game, it's just what they need. We get another chaotic final ring, Jay Howe, and the fact that they're able to split up, divide, and very much conquer is the one thing that saves them.
The amount of KP they got that game, and the Kraber came in there towards the end, missed on the hipfire one, but the rest of the team came through. They got aggressive. Rubik dominated with that Mastiff there on the Jibby. Looked like Major Pushers might have had the spot, might have been able to come out of that truck, which was the dominant position. I still don't know how that was available that late into the game, but credit to Major Pushers for repositioning there. They got a top spot, but it's Red Dragons that came out as the dominant team here in game number 5. Well, I tell you, I hate that we have to go to a breaks and I got to sit and wait for these standings because, man, I tell you, this is the tightest week we've had so far, and there's only one game left.
It really is. It is going to be anybody's game as we enter the 6th one, Jay Howe. I can't wait to see how it breaks out, but just as you said, we got to take that break. We got to do the math because otherwise it's all for naught. We'll see you right back here in just a minute for the last game of the 3rd preseason qualifier. Lordy, lordy, Jay Howe, what a day it has been. We talked about it earlier. It has been one of the most competitive days in the preseason qualifiers over here at EMEA that we have had yet, and it is about to get even tighter as we take a look at the scores from last game, taking us into the last one of the day.
The amount of parity that we've had throughout the day, but with Red Dragon getting 13 kills that game, made up some major ground, major pushers with a second place finish. I mean, we have so many teams competing today. This has been the tightest week that we've had. It's been crazy, almost as crazy as, say, pumpkin spice marshmallows, which somehow you tweeted that you had those for breakfast. And I think that we'll talk about that after broadcast, but we'll keep the crazy focus on the games today because they've been phenomenal so far.
Yeah, we'll have to see what sort of craziness we get in this last game, as I want to see the overall standings as we move in as well, because there's a lot of drama here. Top dogs, 54 points right now, and let's take a look. Let's find Red Dragon. They're only 2 places down.
I mean, they made up so much ground there. We've seen 12 points being easily overcome. If Top Dogs goes out earlier, remember, at first place finish and some KP, can amass a large amount of points in these final games. Clean within striking distance, Fig within striking distance, Crazy and those teams down below would take an absolutely insane game. But we're talking about 2 teams for sure that are in contention with 3 teams within striking distance.
Yeah, we have, let's see, I'm taking a look at who can make it in right now. Play, unfortunately, have a very difficult road to get here. I feel like I am getting some audio interference, though. So, Jayhow, can you go ahead and take this while I try and figure out the technical difficulties I'm having?
Yeah, it's all good, man. There's some hungry people ready to get started here for game number 6, and I'm one of them. We've been blessed with 2 solid weeks, and now going into our 3rd week to where it's been hyper competitive, both in EMEA and North America, to where every game has mattered all the way up until the very end. I think sometimes we expect one team to jump out to such a huge lead that it's unobtainable, but we've been very blessed with some phenomenal games over these first 3 weeks, and the trend will continue here in EMEA as we are down to 1 game, 2 teams within a couple of points of each other, with 3 more teams within striking distance. Look for those teams that are within striking distance to try and go a little more aggressive to get some of that KP, while the other 2 teams will be playing zone heavy and major pushers and top dogs.
I am really, really hyped up to see exactly where we pull as well, because the zones have actually told so many stories right now. And I feel like, weirdly enough, in the first couple of games, it was Clean that was able to replicate performances from zone to zone. But as we've gotten a little bit later in the day, top dogs are really the ones that are sticking around. And weirdly enough, Red Dragon have started to crop up as well. Of course, we saw them take the win over by Lava Siphon, but they have really consistently been able to find themselves some kills, and though sometimes they go out early, they are always going to be a team that will fight you. You don't challenge Red Dragons unless you're willing to go all the way.
I am intently, again, watching the minimap, but this time I did check. Now we do see another Lava Siphon or potential launch site southern ending, but Climatizer conveniently quiet this time. Maybe Skyhook is going to have that early activity that we've seen from some of the others, but also Lava Fisher seems to be maybe the hot zone now. The northwest side of the game today has certainly been early action.
It's been really, really strange, and it's because I think it's mostly Odin that has been jumping around so much and sort of pushing people out of their comfort zone now. The baby, you talked about the Lava Fisher over here. Seems like they are the ones that are a little bit better equipped to take this fight. 2 blues and a purple is pretty nice.
Yeah, they have not had the luck at Climatizer, so switching things up. Well, they did get some damage in there. The aggression does not come off of it. They do have to make up this gap out in the open if they do believe somebody is on that building, which we can see that there is. 1 head peek, they're looking through that glass. You do not just simply walk into the halls of that building.
No, but with a little bit of backup, maybe they can make this work. And Pig pushing up over here by the beacon, does have the sight line on the roof, and with a horizon to get you all together, the maybe actually are in a pretty good spot right now. With the dome already forced, though, things are getting iffy. And Pig going to have to pop out with the shield battery, and Koopa, might actually be in a little bit of trouble here. Manages to get away for right now. Maybe they were being hemmed in, and they're being hemmed into an Arc Star and even more nades as well. The Thermite burning away at NPig leaves Matpa as the only one from the outside that can deal with this gas, and he's not in there right now, leaving his two teammates to go down. It is about saving yourself for those placement points later.
It's Crazy 3, though, that came in as the crazy third party.
End up finding those kills. Now they might be able to find a few more, pushing into the building themselves, trying to find that last little cheeky caustic that got away from them earlier. They end up instead finding oracles. That is, it's Sanka that ends up falling, and Big Bam again involved in a fight of their own up against Phoenix Legacy over here by Skyhook. Might be able to take them out early, but Sabs is putting in work with this flatline, and Xander doing much the same here. Disengages for a second, comes right back in, knocks her down, and now with one member left remaining, we'll see if they can clutch this one out. If Phoenix Legacy can continue, as an Arc Star ends up finding purchase, but ultimately Liffin on the Valkyrie is not the savior of Phoenix.
If Big Vam is going to make that miracle run, it starts now, and you have to get this early KP. They've done just that. A little close, I'm sure, than they would have liked to have had, but KP is KP. They'll continue. We did see some teams play more on the edge of zone last game, and I think that we're going to probably see some more teams try and make the same approach. Meanwhile, Major Pushers, a team looking to play it very differently. One of our top two teams, only a couple of points separate them from that top spot, so they're looking to play early into the tree zone. Those lower buildings have always been
Top Dogs
dangerous, to say the least.
Top Dogs did get one knocked right here. If they get eliminated, Major Pushers, they're in the best spot. So keep your eyes on the kill feed, of course, for Top Dogs, Major Pushers, and Red Dragon, whatever side of the kill feed they may be on, because everybody else is going to be looking there as well. And Major Pushers trying to play this one a little bit more slowly here. Have got a pretty reliable spot in ring, but you and I have covered this before, Jay, how this low ground gets riskier and riskier if the ring closes around you.
Yeah, I don't anticipate it coming here based on the early scan that we saw, but teams go full zombie mode on the lower buildings. The back end, the southwest end of tree is normally better. Again, it's too early to tell. It could end closer to Lava Siphon again. Could go further south. If it does go south, they can always wrap around that back choke. They control a lot. They just have to be careful not to let teams kind of take that southern area of tree if they did want to rotate around. So it's difficult, because they do have to go up. No matter what direction they do, they either have to go through a truck or they have to go up. And so the fact that they're reading this like this is a little bit of a cause for concern for Major Pushers.
It's definitely a really big risk for them. We'll have to see how it works out. Clean, though, not taking any risks or playing this exactly the same as they did last zone. It's not that they've got a read on exactly where this is going to end, but it's that they're confident that from here they can play almost any ending that is around Lava Siphon. And they have an immense amount of control over the lobby. Anybody who pushes up into them, who overextends just a touch, can be punished from here, even though they're running on low loot.
The most interesting part about the new Lava Siphon zone endings, from what I've seen and from a lot of the zones, they tend to either end near the staircase, near the control building, or on the far east or far west side, or down below. It's rarely ever directly near that middle building. So while it is a great point of control, it's rarely a good late, I don't mean late, I mean like super late zone to hold. And we saw that in the previous game where they had to kind of make a desperation play with that Valkyrie, and there's very few places to go. So if they're going to do something from here, I think they need to be more aggressive in terms of trying to manufacture some of that KP, or looking for some without taking too many risks. So while they will get damage, it's kind of like holding the top of Epicenter, a little more aggressive than those, but it really is more about control and hoping that you can get that KP.
And of course, despite being a team that has shown up in the KP previously, has been placing really well, Clean have yet to win a game today, and converting into a win is going to be really, really important for them. We talked about top dogs earlier, though, and there's no better chance to say, look at the bottom left of your screen for this very last game where they've got to make up the points between, or got to keep the points between them and Major Pushers the same.
They're pinched.
Missing a member is not good, and Red
They're
Dragons
pinched.
showing up as well. This is so bad for top dogs.
And if it's Red Dragons, they're in a kill feed otherwhere, but Top Dogs is out, opening the door wide open for Major Pushers now, who are definitely reading that kill feed, looking at that. Meanwhile, Red Dragon has a hill to climb. They're trying to take one step at a time. Horizon ult not able to pull anybody in with that combo. They'll look for another shot later, but Red Dragons does need a lot of KP to close up the gap.
Go fishing. They've already found one, or at least a knock here. We'll keep our eyes on them, see if they can push that lead as they did last game. If they get, if they get a Kraber, it is over. As PKMK, we know very well, can and will decimate lobbies with that. Chichevicha, though, a team that can still play spoiler for a lot of these squads, is trying their very best to make things a little bit more difficult for what I can only assume is Major Pushers out there trying to get the beacon scan. Things are really coming down to the wire out here, and this is where you got to be afraid for teams that are looking for that aggressive last little bit of points, because it isn't over for teams that might not place first today. Chichevicha, they've got an immense journey there, and it is unlikely, but it is very, like, getting points is getting points for the future, and there's no two ways about it.
Every game matters. That's going to be the mantra of this. It was Weebs out, the team that was getting that beacon scan, so we do need to check back in eventually with Major Pushers. Meanwhile, Odin Gamers, they are fully engaged over towards Frag side. They're already down a member, so Vic trying to hold them off enough. Maybe they can get the res here. It's like they're actually choosing to retreat. I thought they were potentially dropping back to get that. But instead, they're now going to succumb to the pressure.
This is going to be crazy threes that are pushing up on them, likely finding those kills as we see Nemesis engaged in yet another fight over here. Actually finding some good knocks with the L-Star, but pinched once again has already been the story of so many good fallen teams. Crazy threes end up finishing off their fight, as in the kill feed we see Clone ending up falling as well. That is going to be Nemesis out. Crazy 3 continuing their run through here. See if they can make that one last insane push up to the top.
I tell you, Major Pushers, when you're kind of at the top and you know that your closest competition is out, these teams that are you're essentially playing for a win at this point, because you know that you can get placement points and guarantee those placement points the higher you go. I think that's kind of what they're sitting on. And I think that might actually be a trap there. But this is shifting further towards the east potentially than our last zone. So Major Pushers, you can see them on the left side of the mini-map there. They have to move in. They don't have a whole lot that's holding them out. There's the blue crates, we'll call them crates. When you go up the zip there on the west side of Siphon, but making your way through there is no easy task. I don't really know what they're going to do there. The team's in launch site. They'll be able to move forward. I mean, I'm telling you, Major Pushers, the tension has to be sky high for them.
You know, and I'm looking at this as well and thinking that Clean actually have a really good shot because they have first access to the truck, something that can be really, really valuable the later we get in. Nobody's really going to be pushing through the center of Lava Siphon because it's not where you're going to end up going. And this actually might be the game that Clean can run because they're not that far behind, only about 10 or so points behind Major Pushers right now. And they can make that up with some nice KP. Crazy threes, though, on the receiving end of a lot of hurt. Seem like they're going to be okay for now. As kills continue to go off here. Teams picking up point after point, but nobody who is even close to the top right now has been showing up. Everybody's playing very, very safe. If you're in those top 5, you are in it for the long run.
Dead inside, fully engaged here, and this is fairly isolated for them to take this fight. There was some teams still potentially in the tree vicinity. I think those teams were moving in. Every time that kill feed comes up, I kind of flinch a little, waiting to see, is it going to be Major Pushers up there? Is it going to be Clean starting to get more of that damage? These teams that can catch up, as you said, with the top dogs out, the gap to first is significantly less for these teams. So the teams that are within striking distance are constantly keeping an eye on that, trying to get some of that KP to close up that.
Now, Dead Inside over here have been fighting for a really long time. They've been playing a little bit more of an aggressive game. They'd have to have a 20-plus point game to win, and they'd need major pushers to go out before they got too many placement points. But it is possible. We've seen crazy things like this before, and Dead Inside, they really, really want this win. They have been here every single week in the preseason qualifiers, and they would like nothing more than to finally make it through. The missile barrage comes down. They have yet to find that one decisive crack, the one decisive knock that would spell the end of this team on the low ground. But make no mistake, they are fishing.
They have the team pinched. I mean, there is no way out for the team below. So Dead Inside does have the capabilities to do this. Hold on a second. Third party comes in.
All of a sudden, things get turned
Just
on their head.
like
And
that,
Dead
my
Inside,
God.
they are gonna be gone. No way to survive that. Flying camels, the most unexpected of creatures, end up making that the end of the game for them. As it looks like in the kill feed, Clean are finding some kills of their own. Flying camels still running with this Octane, going back to last season's specialty, are gonna end up ditching back to the low ground to try and get away, but instead they meet their untimely end, and it is at the hand of major pushers who came up for those kills.
Yeah, they needed to find something to give them space, but also try and get some KP. Clean also got some kills as well during those skirmishes, so our top two teams are still there fighting it out. But every point that major pushers get, every spot that they get, every KP that they get, closes or pushes them further away from their competition. So for a team like Clean, remember, last week, it literally came down to one of the final fights in the game where Clean almost pulled it out. They finished second. And if they had won that fight, would have been in their spot in ALGS. They are not unfamiliar with trying to frag out in the final game to close the distance on first place.
We gotta see him do it one more time, though. Fig Vam in a very, very similar position right now. Been taking aggressive spots to try and find knocks, to try and get themselves the KP, because they as well are 10 points behind first place right now. Actually, a few more, since major pushers ended up cleaning up the kills. Red Dragon are playing this a little bit more slowly, but in a familiar spot for them, as we saw them bust out of this building last game and take the win. We see the next zone as well, and it is again, pulling right outside near that truck. That has got to be the place that we are focusing on.
Yeah, the truck there and Clean will be able to push directly out of that middle building. Meanwhile, on the eastern side of Lava Siphon, it is going to be Crazy 3 popping off here. Gonna get one kill, see if they try and follow up for more. They are climbing. We'll take a break here, paused here from the caustic gas, gonna force them back. Does get an armor swap off the dead body there. So Crazy 3 manufacturing some kills. See if they try and move up one more time.
And remember, they can and will play spoiler for a lot of these teams. Crazy 3 are all about racking up the points right now. The win just barely looking like it's out of reach, but insane things do happen. I was about to say crazy things have happened, and I was like, I can't commit that sin. Not at this point. I gotta save the puns for later.
Clean is looking at the truck. There is... Oh, they've already got it trapped up.
Free.
Yeah,
this
is the dominant position right now. And if they want to get KP, they can't just rest in the middle building. They needed to be somewhat aggressive. It's not too early to take that spot, but it gives them several sight lines to shoot both directions to try and snipe some of this KP or kill anybody that comes in. So Clean, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it by firmly planting their foot right in the middle of this zone and daring anybody to push them.
It is about picking off the people who are vying for those spots. AAS looking like they're going down in the kill feed, though, getting picked off themselves. We'll see by whom as we look over here at a mass of Gibraltar ultimates and domes. And with Bambino showing up in the kill feed, this is going to be Eternal cleaning up some kills from the low ground. They've been playing that with the cryptos so far. And speaking of playing, Dave right now is not necessarily having the best time.
He queued up for solo queue right now because teammates are going to be unrecoverable and unresable. There's nowhere where you could even try and get them back, so playing for points. Meanwhile, Red Dragon starting to show themselves in the kill feed. and get some KP that they need. I mean, we talk about Clean with the positioning, but it's not going to be Red Dragons, a team in similar position as them, who are getting some kills of their own.
And we have a pretty bloody game, all things considered, Jay Howe. For what we've got, 7 squads left as we close in on this next ring is almost unheard of, as normally we have a lot more patience, but this time you can really feel the tension in the air as everybody's vying for position. Weeb's out on the low ground right now. Yet another team that is cleaning up KP that nobody else will be able to pick up, and that's the really, really big thing, as healing up inside of these little crates gives them cover for the low ground, and it might be something they need, is the defensive bombardment could really hurt.
Just remember, Clean has not came out of this truck. They have been sitting idly by. There is only 6 other teams. One of those is a rat squad, meaning that KP is few and far between. Major Pushers has not been put out, meaning that every time somebody goes out, it's one more spot for Major Pushers to go up and less KP for you to close the distance. Look, to be respectful, Clean is getting a lot of points throughout these weeks, so they can get it in other ways, but you know they would love to get a first place finish and get it out of the way now. There's going to be one kill. They're now starting to get some of this going in their favor. They gave up the truck, a little risky, but you can see it starting to pay off with some of those kills.
And the big question is it too late? Can Clean still clutch this one out? As there we go, another kill showing up in the kill feed by Knots. It might just be the thing that pushes them over the edge. They are being pushed from the back, though, as you can see on the bridge, all the way out from the center of Lava Siphon is a team that is contesting and could be Red Dragon trying to play upset right now, but that's where this truck is so valuable, or it will be for the next 40 seconds, as it is not in the next ring.
Well, that is Crazy 3, the team that is there. Red Dragons just to the west of them. Major Pushers, the team at the top left of your screen. They are the team that sits apart from everybody else, and they also sit apart by way of points right now. So Clean trying to close the gap and move forward. Here comes the shots. There's going to be knock number 1. Wingman comes out, knock number 2. Clean, they've lost one member, need to clean up this final one, and they do.
Lord.
Clean now starting to heat things up, very reminiscent of last week.
They've still got the time to work with right now, taking the portal back 11 seconds until this ring closes. We're slightly closer on the bridge, but Knots needs to heal up because the fight is incoming. There's a real chance that Clean are able to find this, but they gotta go through Red Dragons, who are right outside and involved in their own fight with Major Pushers as well. Ranches is going to go down, leaving 2 members of Major Pushers left, but from the back, Clean are coming in to try and clean up Red Dragon. This is their time to shine. This is their time to take out the competition.
Now's the chance. There's one kill for Clean. Major Pushers still needs to get positioning points. Any KP will help them. There's going to be some shots going through. Clean just trying to shoot through any crack that they can to get even more KP. Red Dragons down and out. Down to 3 teams. Clean, Major Pushers, and one other team that's going to be playing on the other side. And you can see with Clean and Major Pushers directly on top of each other, those are the 2 teams, but it might be too little too late. Major Pushers with a top 3 finish might be getting through. Time will tell. Here we go.
Clean need to get every single one of these kills. They cannot leave a 1 on the table for Major Pushers, and that's the scary thing. The control that they have to have over this lobby is only made better by the fact that they have the high ground. They have the best position right now, and as this final ring is going to start closing it in 33 seconds, we are going to get some of the best gameplay we've had.
It's too hard to calculate everything now, but you got to imagine Clean needs to keep all the KP away from Major Pushers by this team while also getting a first place finish. So now Clean looking to go peek up and over. They have eyes on him.
It's a nice position, but it's also a risk, because remember that the 2 teams that fight first tend to be the 2 teams that die first and leave the win up to, in this case, what would be Major Pusher. So Clean can't actually full engage on this unless they can guarantee a very quick wipe without losing their health, without losing their shields, and ready to fight Major Pushers next. Using ordinances to clear them out right now, maybe find some knocks. If they can get 1, if they can find 2 cracks, it's going to be enough. But right now, turning their attention on the Major Pushers, unlucky is the one keeping them at bay.
Yeah, this might be the best opportunity that they're going to have. Unable to get the KP on one side. They're doing damage, but they're not getting the knocks yet. They have to commit to 1. Jibby ult will force Clean back buy some time and space for major pushers to move up. We are going for an electric finish here.
Major pushers thinking about their move in right now have managed to take the high ground actually, and they take down Dolph at the same time. This could be a major pusher's angle as the dome goes down. They think they can find the win, but in the meantime, Unlucky's cleaning up as well. Major pushers come in with the Eva. They take the win, and they are going to be moving on to the Pro League.
Boy, take the calculations out of the scenario and put your fate in your own hands. Major pushers with an emphatic finish on a phenomenal day not only took out their competition, but got a win when it mattered most. That is amazing for a team that we had high expectations for to miss week number 1. Everybody started scratching their head like, hold on a second, this isn't what we expected. An average week last week at best. But this week did everything they needed to do and put themselves where we all thought they would be. Major shout outs to major pushers. What a day.
It really came down to the wire there as well, because the finesse to usurp that top position from Clean, move themselves to the high ground and get that initial beam, it was a second, 2 seconds of difference, and it doesn't end up going through. So the fact that they actually managed to do that, amazing stuff from them. And I'll ask you to cast your mind back, J-How, to when they started the day as what was essentially a duo out of Ring 1. They still managed to put up points, and those points are the things that, in a weird way, secure them the win here.
I mean, that game right there, when you talk about it, it's like, hey man, how'd you make it into ALGS? It's like, well, let me tell you about game number 1.
Yeah.
It's like, gather around, let's tell the story, because that is unheard of. What they did in game number 1 is probably the main reason why they were able to be in this position here and get this win. Those points there, and in case you missed the start of the day, they were one of the first teams to have somebody go down. They were early in the zone. They lost a member and had to play as a duo. And I believe they got 10 KP as a duo for the remainder of the game and a top 3 or top 5 finish or somewhere in the vicinity to give them points in game number 1 where you would be rather unexpected to get those points. And that right there, you can look back, you bookended. Game number 1, game number 6, let's go.
Yeah, we have seen sort of the many faces of them as well. As I think that they would be happy to have us forget game number 3 with the ethereal Fragment shenanigans as well. But I think that that's part of the thing that makes me really excited to see this team in Pro League at the same time, is the fact that they are willing to take those risks even when everybody else will look at them and say this isn't the best move. They will fully commit to the play, and it's the thing that I think is that same attitude that gets them the KP in game 1 that makes them have those decisive moves in game 3, is that their calls are clean and concise, and they are willing to really try anything to find that W.
I mean, this team is stuck together, and we've seen them compete a lot, so I think everybody expected them to be in ALGS. We just wondered how they would get there. There's a lot of other teams, I think, competing today the same way. Clean has had now several top 2 finishes, if you will, the last 2 weeks, or top 3 finishes. So they're a team, they could be qualified. I mean, I'm going to leave that to somebody else to figure all that out. But what's definitive here is major pushers, that team that we expected to be here. And this is kind of the storyline for, I think, teams across all regions, is that the experience part we talked about earlier, there's teams that are beyond experienced compared to some of these other ones just because they've been doing it so long and so well. And Major Pushers was one of those teams. And for them to win, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, but the way that they did it is just a story that I think they'll be able to tell. And I would have loved to see in that first person perspective from game number 1, or I'd like to see a stream tell me, it's like, well, listen, let me tell you, I need to hear that straight from their mouths one day, because that was just amazing, man. What a day.
And the really nice thing about week 3 as well is that it gives us so much going into week 4. You talked about Clean, but think about FigVam as well. As we're going to take a look instead at the points from last game. No surprise to anyone, Major Push is coming out on top, 20 points to Clean's 16. It was that close, J-How.
Man, that could have gone either way, and Clean really started to ramp up. I still cannot wrap my head around how nobody got knocked from the shellacking of nades that were all thrown behind that box there at the end on the other team before they had to turn to focus on Major Pushers. they threw nade after nade after nade, and there were a few that I thought were going to definitely net some knocks and therefore some kills, and then a better rotation for Clean there at the end. I cannot believe they stayed up. So Clean really ramped up again towards the end, but came up a little bit short. But make no mistake about it, I think if there's a safe bet going into securing one of the other 16 spots, it's Clean. But the fact that we have Crazy 3, Chichivica, all of these teams showing up in the second half today makes for a compelling week number 4.
Yeah, and exactly. I was just thinking about week number 4 as well, where we're going to. You said Clean. I think Fig Vam, Red Dragon, and Dead Inside as well. Eternal coming back for what I am expecting to be their third preseason qualifiers. They do make it really consistently. There's so much here, and even Top Dogs who. Out of today didn't end up having the best showing. I continue going in expecting a lot from them, and they had really good first 3 games and then sort of fell off a cliff. How many storylines are we expecting for week 4? It's got to be crazy. Let's take a look at the leaderboards, see exactly how many points in the end Major Pushers had over everybody else, as they had a nice 13-point lead over Clean right there to top it off.
I just love the fact that the teams that needed to do something to try and close that gap of Red Dragon, Fig, Crazy 3, the aggression that came out of those teams could be something for them to build upon going into next week. They know that they're capable. We've seen what they're able to do. So for them to do that, Clean, another second place finish. I mean, when losing feels so good and so bad at the same time, I guarantee Clean is on that fence now 2 weeks in a row. A little further distance compared to last week, but it's Major Pushers the first time. It's probably the biggest gap that we've had, I think, in both of our regions that we've covered. So Major Pushers dominant performance in game number 6 to secure the spot.
Now, I gotta say that if you enjoy competitive Apex Legends, the journey isn't over here. We talk about the Major Pusher story, the Clean story. We've weirdly enough got similar storylines going on over in North America. Noble and Benchwarmers for those 2 spots seem to be the sort of mirrors here. So if you're interested, if you are so inclined to see even more great Apex Legends, learn from and watch the best, then I invite you to join us on our North American broadcast in just a few hours. We will return not just then, but next week, same time, same place, with the very last EMEA preseason qualifier, and I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to it, Jay Howe. We'll see you all then.